TFNB Your Bank for Life studio. Now, it's time for the SMOAK Show. Presented by IdealMRI.com. Premium quality MRIs, convenient, affordable. That's ideal. And by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance. We are Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, your insurance provider built by Texans for Texans. And we've been protecting families in our great state since 1952. TFNB, your bank for life, serving Central Texans since 1889. It's time for the SMOAK Show on 365 Sports with David Smoke and Craig Smoke.
And here we go on this Wednesday afternoon. Good afternoon. Hope you're doing well. The SMOAK Show on 365 Sports. I'm David Smoke, and to my right, Craig Smoke, also a co-host with us here on the YouTube channel. A lot of things to get to, Craig. We have some news when it comes to conferences and 24-game playoff, all of that, some opinions and a little bit of catfight here and there after yesterday's everybody throwing bombs at Ole Miss. But I like the way you set this up today. Let's get to some of the damn games that are going to be played and some of the announcements that were made on Tuesday about when and where and what networks and all the rest of the above.
Yeah, first of all, just glad to be here for another day and another show, and shout out to Chat and everybody out there watching. And the 24-team playoff, I think you mean not game playoff, but point stands that was in the news yesterday. The ACC coming out saying that they were in favor of the 24-team, and we know that that basically leaves everybody but the SEC now at this point, but that matters because the SEC's 50% of the vote moving forward on what to do. It doesn't really matter what the ACC or the Big 12 or the group of sixes or whatever want. It's ultimately in the hands of the SEC and the Big 10. And so the Big 10 at one point, the 24 team looking like it was craziness, and now looks like it's maybe more likely than anything else that we see, but I'm sure we'll get to that. And as of yesterday, there were a lot of game announcements coming out for the start of the season, for the end of the season, for Black Friday, all in between. So we didn't talk much about any of them yesterday, I think, because they were kind of just slowly trickling out throughout the day. And by the time I got bunkered down last night and started looking into it, I had a stack of probably 7 or 8 game announcements that had been put out officially just yesterday. So, excited to have those becoming official. It's, can't really make fun of the NFL and their slow drip of a schedule release and then turn right around and talk about, oh, man, look at all these scheduling times. We're feeling the excitement that fans for the NFL feel for all their games. Theirs is just a little bit more interesting because it is such a orchestrated, 2-week trickling out from their insiders, whereas this is just the TV networks and the schools finally putting things out. But it's fun to see, and it's fun to know when some of these bigger games of the year are going to be played.
We have bangers today. We have Brett McMurphy on 3 today at 3:40. He had an article we'll get to about the ACC and Notre Dame. Maybe not as comfortable as a lot of people, especially maybe the ACC would like it, or Notre Dame. And then Tim Brando. He has been one fired-up son of a gun on many things, most of it last week about the expansion to 24 teams, but now also with the Ole Miss taking the strays, as we said, from either Steve Sarkisian and or even others like Lane Kiffin. So we'll have that with him. He's at 4. Brett McMurphy today at 3:40, and also Brett Norsworthy, Memphis Radio, covers Ole Miss. He will join us today at 5. Let's get to it. And Rez, we will follow your lead. College Game Day and Fox both announcing quite a bit today. And the first one is the start of the 40th year of College Game Day. Week 1 is LSU and Clemson in Baton Rouge. And week number 2, the game that we've seen a lot of in the playoffs 2 years ago. And then last year, of course, in the first part of the season, Ohio State in Austin. Both those bangers will be on College Game Day, and they'll be there, not a surprise.
Yeah, and as I said a second ago, some of this was released yesterday. It's just been kind of ongoing, getting announcements here and there. So it's been fun to see this. And, for the people that get excited by the Saturday shows, I'm not necessarily one of those. It's not a part of my tradition as much as when I was kind of beat reporting and didn't have much time to really sit back and watch Game Day. And I still watch Game Day and Big Noon Kickoff to some degree, but it's not like the appointment television it was when I was younger. And regardless of that, I'm still excited to see the games that they're going to be going to and the sites, and especially now with game day is going to be celebrating this 40th anniversary. So I'm sure they'll have a lot of tricks, treats, and fun things along the way. But yeah, it's cool to see these becoming official and two pretty massive games right out of the gate. LSU Clemson there makes a ton of sense why you'd want to go check out Lane Kiffin's first game in Baton Rouge, and also a heck of an opponent there with Dabo and the Tigers. So nice little all Tigers matchup. And sure, yeah, that makes a ton of sense to be at that one. And then obviously in week 2, Ohio State and Texas makes a ton of sense to be there as well. Seems like that's, like you said, almost a yearly game at this point, even though not anywhere close to that. It just does feel like those two teams find their way towards playing each other quite often. So that was a game last year that obviously was a huge win for Ohio State. And now Texas gets their turn at home to get a big old playoff resume building win, like right out of the gates. So yeah, two mega matchups. Those are the kinds of games for all the hand wringing about lack of non-conference games. Well, here you go. Here's some non-conference games for you. And I think the fear that was all these types of games are going to be canceled, I think that was a bit overblown. I understand why there was sort of that narrative going around there when you saw a couple of games switch around or switch to neutral sites or whatever, but I still think big games are going to be played, and I commend all 4 of these teams for scheduling these games and not being afraid of a challenge early on in the season. And quite frankly, should be less worried about it moving forward, because if we have a 24-team playoff, I don't think losing in week 1 is going to hurt you at all, especially if it's to Ohio State, Texas, Clemson, or LSU. It'll only hurt you if you go lose about 5 more games after that. And then if that's the case, well, guess what? You don't deserve to be in the playoff.
Yeah, because there was a time when it was 4, or even before that when there was none. You lose in a game, even if it was a tight game early, you had to plow yourself back into contention, and that game was always there. Whether it's a loss to a banger and 10, 15 points or a tight game, it was hard to overcome that when there's 4. Now, yeah, you've got mulligans. And that game almost in some cases, the way it's viewed, is not even a loss. It's just a game you didn't win.
It's only a loss, really, if you get beat up pretty good. If you get beat by 2 or more scores, then it's a significant loss. But if you stay relatively tight, I don't think anybody side-eyes Texas losing to Ohio State by 8 or LSU beating Clemson, and Clemson now suddenly they lost by 6, and now, they're totally screwed. And that's where I kind of run into this wall of, I understand all of the nostalgia, especially from my age group of people, because we're becoming the old people now. So it's like back in the 90s, everything was better. Everything was perfect. And it's like, no, it wasn't. But it was, yeah, I wouldn't want to live now more than then. Like, I definitely feel like I would much prefer to be in the 90s growing up as a teenager than in the 2020s for sure. But not everything was better. And I do go back and forth on the regular season's been devalued and the regular season's sacred. And I do think that's right to a point. I think it's maybe getting a little bit overblown. And quite frankly, I never was always a fan of you lose 1 game early and then you're just playing like death ball for the rest of the way. Like, you cannot lose any more games or you have no shot whatsoever. I understand that made the regular season special because then every game did feel like it had something immense riding on it. But it also kind of sucked to have a really good team and you lost maybe 2 games and you were just completely written off from having any hopes of having a championship or something. Or a shot at the national championship. So there is a middle ground. I think 12 was kind of a middle ground to have some of your cake and to eat it too. I don't know about 24. I don't know how that's going to make the regular season feel. It is definitely not what it was, but I don't know that that's always a bad thing, as evidenced by like Miami last. I think there's some examples of some teams who lost a couple games, and you go, well, in the old days, they wouldn't have had a shot whatsoever. So there's a middle ground. I don't know if we're blowing right past that, though, with the 24 teams. But regardless, these early games, I welcome them, and I don't think they hurt you, despite all the fear-mongering after the Texas situation a year ago.
We appreciate those of you who are already rolling in the chat, your thoughts about some of the games and what we talk about. We want to hear your feedback. If you're watching us on Twitter, I put my email up just a moment ago with the feed on Twitter. Contact us with opinions, feedback, and more. And, of course, we will have Tim Brando and Brett McMurphy, as I mentioned, and Brett Norsworthy. Then there's another banger the following week. It is Oklahoma in Ann Arbor against Michigan. That was College game day. This is Big Fox noon kickoff. And week number 2, this game is on Fox.
Hey, Oklahoma fans, how you like those noon kickoffs, huh? How you like? You thought you got away from those, didn't you? Not so fast, my friend. Yeah, that was the big announcement for OU and Michigan. It's cool how it's just sort of lined up where Ohio State's playing Texas and Oklahoma's playing Michigan, and they're doing so in the same couple of years. I think that's just a cool little quirk. Hey, how about we reverse that? How about we have Oklahoma now play Ohio State for a couple of years and Texas plays Michigan? Although I think they just feels like they just did, but regardless, yeah, these are 3 really fun matchups, and Big Noon getting on the action. No surprise, they're going to be camped out in Ann Arbor. This ought to be a heck of a game, and I think with both of these teams, some pretty lofty expectations. Although albeit with Michigan, like a little bit more slow to expect too much right away from Kyle Whittingham, but certainly a lot of excitement about the change there and what he can do, and to have a real coach and a real staff in place and get away, hopefully, from some of the foolishness headlines-wise that Michigan's found itself in for the last few years. I think Kyle Whittingham's all business and a great coach. So huge challenge for him. Biggest game he'll have obviously hosted his early Michigan career. And then for Oklahoma, an incredible opportunity. A team made the playoff and feels like they've got just as good, if not a better team this year. A healthy John Mateer. A lot of excitement about this one, and that's a heck of a game for Big Noon. But it is funny that Oklahoma fans hated the 11 a.m. kickoffs for the longest time, understood that they got those all the time because that was the sweet spot of the TV lineup. And so being one of the bigger brands, they were selected for that slot more than others. But they hoped, I think, in going to the SEC, they'd be able to avoid that. So it's just funny every time I see an 11 a.m. or a noon, kickoff for Oklahoma.
Yeah, they don't like the 11 o'clock kickoffs, but they damn sure like that check from ESPN and or Fox for playing in those games. That for Fox, that's their game. Not that they don't have other ones the rest of the day. And for ESPN, a lot of times, because it's also attached not to every game that game day's at, but it's a big moment. Now, let's get to TCU in North Carolina. We've known this, and SJL in the chat. These are games we've known about forever. Well, not really every game, because now games are changed quite a bit, but we also now know Dublin, Ireland is where teams open up the year. Sometimes if the winners go on and do well and the losers seem like they fade into oblivion, and TCU, North Carolina, open up in Dublin, Ireland, and there's the game on ESPN. That will kick off there later in the day, but 11 o'clock Central in Texas.
Yeah, and I think to be clear, we know these games have been scheduled, but this is the kickoff times, the announcements, when they're being played, where they're being played, and all that. That's the part that's the new and fun and interesting part. And maybe some of these are doubling up, but I don't know. We can go talk legalese stuff if you want to right off the top of the show, but this is kind of a nice change of pace, and it's fun to see the scheduling come out so you can plan accordingly. If you were planning on going to Ann Arbor and an Oklahoma fan, you now know, hey, it's a 11 a.m. kickoff. Be prepared for that. So that's the difference here from just knowing that these teams are playing. But yeah, this is interesting. I think TCU ought to be pretty good, but I don't know how good. Like by default, 8 wins is kind of where they are now as a program. Anything lower than that, it's a pretty bad year. Anything higher than that, I'm not quite ready to go that far, just because as positive as you might be about Jaden Craig and what he can do replacing Josh Hoover, or as much as you feel like maybe TCU's just got a batch of good players and they're going to have a really good year, it's really hard to nail down. So this is a good opportunity, a good showcase for both teams. And I think ultimately a TCU win, because I have a lot more faith in them than I do in the other side there in North Carolina. Got to see this last year and kind of how that started, and that ball went that ball rolled the rest of the way for Belichick and company. So maybe they come out and they get a big splash win for him, or maybe this is just another nail in the eventual coffin of his North Carolina tenure. But there'll be a lot of eyes on this. It's like Deion in Colorado. I feel like with Belichick in North Carolina, where it's your loyal fans and viewers, it's also some hate watching and just pure curiosity of how these experiments will go. And so, I think with Belichick and the Frogs, this ought to be a good little matchup for the start of the year.
All right, let's go through a couple of these others. One, the Texas and Ohio State game, and the kickoff, even though game day will be there, it will be a night game in Austin, which is a nice breath of fresh air. So despite the fact game day is there, so they announced that one. And then also on Black Friday, the A&M and Texas game, which is in College Station. That game will be a 6:30 on Friday kickoff. So ESPN and Fox, we're just kind of showing you some of where they're going to be with that. And then one more game. No, we'll do the next one, the Egg Bowl, in a minute, because that leads to more stuff about Ole Miss taking strays yesterday. But those are a couple of bangers that are also now with the official times.
Yeah, what was the one right before this one?
It's well, the Texas Ohio State game day, but the game's going to be a night game. Then A&M and Texas will be much later in the year, Thanksgiving weekend on a Friday at 6:30.
Yeah, I mean that ought to be a hell of an atmosphere in Austin for Ohio State. That'll be a heck of a game there in week number 2, and very much looking forward to that one. And that's another thing too to the texture about. I thought we already knew about these games. We didn't know where College Game Day. You kind of assume where College Game Day or Big Noon were going to be, especially these types of games and matchups. But now they're officially announcing it, so therefore the releases and everything. But yeah, I mean that Ohio State Texas game ought to be an awesome contest. And then Texas A&M. I mean, back at Kyle Field, nice night game, going to have a huge stage. And I think for both of these teams, their expectations would lead you to believe this is going to have huge ramifications on the playoff and potentially the SEC championship race. And yeah, all of that, national championship implications, everything, because both these teams, I feel, are very, very confident heading into this season about where they are, where they stand. And I think to not make the playoff for either one of these teams would be a massive disappointment. So this game doesn't need a lot of buildup for those who are familiar with it. But I do think it could have quite a bit because both expect to be good. And that will be a real scene there in College Station at 6:30 here in a few months, because especially if they're both where they expect to be. But yeah, night game at Kyle Field, that'll be a lot of fun.
Here's the Mississippi State version of announcing the game with Ole Miss. And of course, the Egg Bowl will be at 11 o'clock. There you go on a Friday, Black Friday, just the day after Thanksgiving. They'll play at 11 o'clock, Mississippi State and also Ole Miss, which, of course, by then you would think that Ole Miss is in a pretty good position, barring a couple of things unforeseen of being right smack in the middle of the discussion to make the playoff.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. I'm not ready to put Ole Miss back in the playoff, but they could very well be.
I said in the discussion, yeah, but as
and I said, maybe. I don't necessarily think they'll be in the discussion at the end of the year. They might be, but we'll see. I'm not that confident. I haven't put together my 12-team playoff and set all my predictions on that just yet. Don't know when I will, but I mean, I'm not expecting Ole Miss to just run it back, even with Trinidad Chambliss and one of the best running backs in the country and a lot of other really good players. I think they'll certainly be in the mix. Last year, very admirable how they kept their head above water, given all the nonsense that was going on around them. I was really impressed by that, and really been interesting to see the way they've ruffled feathers, as evidenced by yesterday and some of the quotes that were coming out. So, yeah, they've got lofty expectations as well. I kind of view them in a tier down from Texas or A&M or Georgia, whoever. But with Chambliss back and with some other very talented players around him, it's going to be fascinating to see that. I mean, they've got the LSU game that'll be really interesting, and just Pete Golding having the reins for an entire season. I mean, you don't know what to expect because we haven't seen it before. We just saw the playoff run, and that was it. So how is he and how is that team under his coaching for this stretch run for the entire thing from start to finish? That'll be enlightening for everybody once this ball gets rolling. But yeah, that'll be a fun game as always. And 11 a.m., not the most fun time to watch a game, as we talked about earlier, but this is always a big one, regardless of who's in the playoff mix or not. There's so much pride between these two schools.
Well, and because we were on that game yesterday, Ole Miss took shrapnel from Steve Sarkisian, John Sumrall, and of course, Lane Kiffin, who just can't help himself. So the AD at Ole Miss last night, kind of amazing. It's the other one I get. Well, Joe, we all hate losing, but insufferable losers like you, that's not the one I wanted. I'm sorry. I thought I had another one, but He said, Keith Carter, the AD, kind of amazing how uncomfortable our success is making some people. And so he responds. We've seen others respond. And that's exactly what I mentioned. Now, how successful they'll be, Craig, as you mentioned, we're not so sure. But they were 13-2 last year. And then all of a sudden, there's people taking some pot shots at them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's any coincidence. I think certainly if they were 2-10 last year, I don't think too many people are worried about firing off at Ole Miss or too worried whatsoever. I mean, in John Summerall's case, I think he was more or less just having fun with what was going on. He didn't so much that I saw at least take a shot. He was kind of piggybacking and just further jumping into the fray there. Whereas Will Muschamp had very pointed comments a few weeks ago. Steve Sarkisian obviously had very sharp pointed comments in his article, and Lane Kiffin had very intentional. No matter what he says, he's if he's talking, he's lying, in my opinion. Most of the time, he's tried to walk it back. Oh, I didn't mean, dude, you knew exactly what you were saying and exactly how you said it and exactly what your intention was. There's a lot of your types running around nowadays that say things and then walk it back. And no, that wasn't being serious, or I wasn't. Yeah, you were. We know you are, and don't play dumb. So yeah, if you're an Ole Miss fan, you feel like what in the world's going on? And I think, yeah, part of you thinks like, well, if we weren't winning, nobody would care really. Maybe Lane still would because it's like the divorce thing. But outside of that, I don't know why anybody else would be all that concerned with us. But yeah, that's the challenge that they now have on their shoulders. I mean, Trinidad Chambliss, Kawan Lacey, Pete Golding, so on and so forth. I mean, they've got real deal expectations now, and people are gunning for them. And I also think, too, for Lane Kiffin in particular, I don't think his was because he helped contribute to the winning. He helped create the winning. They were where they were last year in part because of him and bringing those players in and guiding them through the regular season to the degree that he did. But I also think Lane's was more his was very calculated in trying to really hit them deep with the shot about of what he was talking about with the racism and the history and the difficult. Yeah, he was trying to get advantages in every way. He was trying to make them look bad. He was trying to gain advantages in recruiting. He was trying to make himself and LSU look better. He was doing a lot of things with what he said. And again, he knew exactly what he was doing. And he knew exactly what he was saying when he tried to walk it back, that he didn't really mean that. He just knew he needed to do that. So, yeah, if they're not winning, most people don't care. Lane, though, I think was more about, I'm going to torch them to get my advantage and have the focus, and the people want to come play for me at LSU, which is understandable to a degree. He probably could have gone different routes with it than he did, but it is what it is, and he's the type of guy that's going to go the odd route more often than not.
He knew exactly what he was saying. He knew exactly what the reaction would be. He knew exactly why he was saying it, and then acted like, damn, I'm sorry. That's what he does.
Misquoted.
That's what he does. And listen, if you're an LSU fan, that's your coach now, and so I know you'll defend him, but it just was an unnecessary cheap shot, pot shot, whatever it was. And it could have just been done differently, and maybe one more salvo as he is at LSU now in Baton Rouge.
And I'm not going to dwell on it by any means because it's just part of the game and so the pro wrestling aspect of it. Although he took it a step farther, that's fine. That's not the biggest deal in the world. If I was an Ole Miss fan, I'd probably feel a little bit stronger about it. But I'm giving him the benefit by actually saying, yes, I know you did that on purpose, because he's trying to say, no, it wasn't calculated. No, dude, you're smarter than that. You try to play dumb, but that's also part of the act, is to play, oh, I didn't know. It's like, yeah, you did. You're smarter than that. We know you're smarter than that. And the only people you're maybe fooling is the fans who are going to follow whatever you do anyways, because now you're their head coach. But that is what it is. We move on, and they'll get to play and decide it on the field. And either way, that'll be one of the best environments in college football this year.
All right, let's move on now to the ACC meetings that are going on. A lot of the big writers, columnists, et cetera, have been at those. Brett McMurphy, who joins us at 3:40, wrote the article about Notre Dame and the ACC, and is that relationship fragile or not? But let's get to the ACC supporting the 24-team college football playoff. Now, this leads into two or three parts of this story. We know that Greg Sankey and the SEC do not want that. Brett Norsworthy has said 24 is fine. The Big Ten, they're the ones that led the charge. And now the ACC confirms, too, that they also want the 24-team college football playoff. I've been Very consistent in what I've indicated. When you're leaving national championship contending teams out of the playoffs, he's referring to, later on mentioned Notre Dame, you don't have the right number, even though Notre Dame in football is a part of the ACC, but not really. But they were left out, and that's who he's referring to.
So was Notre Dame ranked 24th last year? So we need 24 teams to cover.
No. We got to go. That's also the frustration I have is, can we just let something play out and see the actual trends, not just 1 year at a time?
Yeah. So, I mean, I get where he's coming from, and that's more defense of Notre Dame than I think he did during the entire playoff process, much to the chagrin of Notre Dame fans out there. So I think he probably got the messaging and probably realized, like, they're on our team after all, even though it feels like they're the boss of me sometimes. They are actually on our team. But I think at this point, every conference outside of the SEC is now on record basically is saying they want the 2014 playoff. And I'm not sure if this has like really been floated out there. It's just that it was made official, if not yesterday at the ACC meetings when everybody started talking to reporters, and the word consensus was used as far as a consensus has been reached. This wasn't like some tight vote between schools and there's like battle lines drawn. It sounds like everybody's on board. And like, why wouldn't you be? Why wouldn't you be? I mean, if Notre Dame can get snubbed, then certainly every other team that could be on the cusp of a playoff is available to get snubbed. And also you saw Miami go in there and run through this thing. And so that was a great look for the ACC. But yeah, if we can add more teams to that, maybe some of them can make a run. But at minimum, it gives coaches more chances to make the playoff. That's why every coach is pretty much in favor of the playoff. It's good for their resume to make the playoff and to get the bonuses that come along with that and the bragging rights that come along with that. And it probably at this point beats going to the Weed Eater Bowl or whatever it is. So, yeah, I think on the one hand, I'm okay with some form of expansion, although I don't like the 24. I just think that's entirely too many. That's just my personal opinion on it. I would tap out at 16 at most. But we're going to, unless the SEC just makes a terrific stand. Well, I mean, that's what's going to be really interesting now is how does Sankey and company respond, because it's one versus the one. It's not all this side adds up and they trump the SEC. It's the SEC and it's the Big Ten. So we know what the Big Ten wants. And now everybody seemingly is on their side of this 2014 thing, which seems so taboo, like when it was first announced, and now everybody's just followed suit with it. But the SEC's remained firm. They don't want 24. They want 16, and they want it the way that they want it. And so there's going to be some back and forth on this. We'll see. But I'm not surprised any and every school and every coach would be like, yeah, give us more playoff spots to make it. So even though we normally would have finished like 18th in the country and been in some bowl of some sort, now we're in the playoff and we're playing for a national championship technically. So yeah, who wouldn't want to do that? We'll see.
Well, and ESPN, this is according to Jim Phillips, Brandon Marcello with this note as well, has made it pretty clear to commissioners it prefers the college football playoff remain at 12, or if expansion happens, no larger than 16. Jim Phillips confirming that. And then on top of that, that leads to Greg Sankey. I don't know if you guys saw this or not. There's no tweet, no story up. I did read it. Remember Craig Bull was on with us 2 or 3 weeks ago from the AFCA. And then they released that, I guess you could say, the agreement of what they want to see moving forward. Recommendations, including the 2014 playoff. So Greg Sankey, commissioner of the SEC, who has already made it clear 24 is way out of whack, doesn't like that idea. But here's a quote from him. So when Craig Bull put that out, the AFCA, Sankey spoke candidly Monday at the AFCA coaches convention. He goes, it's kind of disappointing. I had seen Craig Bull a couple of weeks ago. I know he has my cell phone number. It would have been nice to have a conversation about the rationale for their statement, the AFCA, and maybe the rationale for some of those decisions. That's a fair leadership expectation. I wonder if Greg Sankey, anytime he wants to discuss something nationally, or other commissioners, do they share that and make sure it's good, or at least explain the rationale to Craig Bull?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that they feel the need to, because I don't know what that power chain or that pecking order feels like to them. I mean, how much do they respect Craig Bowl and what the AFCA does ultimately? I mean, Sankey straight up said that they have no say on scheduling. So basically, what does their opinion matter on scheduling? Like, you're putting forth these recommendations and you have no say in them. So that's really just all they are, is recommendations. Maybe he takes offense that people are taking them as more than recommendations, as though they have some type of authority, and that rubs him the wrong way. I don't know. It's been very interesting, though, to see Sankey, who seemingly was so bulletproof even just a couple of years ago. You just sort of see some cracks, not like in a loss of power or anything like that, but I do think the inability to just fall on the crutch of every time something wants to go against the way that you want it to go, you can just go, look at the trophy case. Look at the trophy case. He can't do that now. Yeah, because we look at that trophy case and it says Big Ten, Big Ten, Big Ten the last 3 years. And so I think that's really thrown things for kind of a different loop and dynamic than we had seen for.
It does. It does. Yeah, it's kind of like the fly in the ointment for them right now.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing you can counter. Just like when they were winning all the titles, you couldn't counteract that. But now that they're not, like, it's a card they can't necessarily pull to just say, oh, here's the trump card. We win all the titles, so we get to say and do what we want to do. So it's interesting to see him in a power struggle that's not just an easy win, and especially since his counterpart here is of a much different breed, is more of the television, money-driven type of a guy who's from a kind of a different background. But also now has the trophies surrounding him that allows him to throw his weight around a bit differently than they could 3 years ago. So, I can see where you would want some communication. I don't know if that's like a weird response to have or not. I'm sure him and Craig Bowl will talk if they haven't already today at some point. But it does sort of feel like Greg Sankey's mad at a lot of things recently, or at least it feels that way as far as headlines go. So, yeah, that wasn't anything that's official. It was a proposal, a recommendation, and that was just saying this is what the coaches would want. So no surprise, again, that the coaches would like a 2014 playoff, because they all stand to benefit greatly from that, except for the guys who don't make a 2014 playoff. And then when people go, well, why'd you lose your job? It's going to be pretty easy to explain. Well, you couldn't make the 2014 freaking playoff like for 5 years. So, yeah, that's an easy call.
That opens up the amount of people, coaches, who will be under fire when it gets to that number, rather than just maybe the 8 or 12 you expect to be in it.
Sure, because instead of it just being the mark being bowl games previously, like, oh, you're regularly going to bowl games, you're going to bowl games every year. I mean, now it's like the bowl games that would have mattered are going to be in so many ways a part of, or would have been those games that are now like the first round games, second round games of the playoff. And then obviously the big ones have already been baked in now for a while. So, there's not really bowl accomplishments you can still have outside of the playoff. I think we're still trying to figure out what all that looks like. But, I think Sankey's just a guy who's going to speak his mind, and I'm not always going to agree with him. Don't know enough about this situation one way or the other to know like who's right, who's wrong. But interesting to kind of bark like that at Craig Bowl. So we'll see what the response to that is.
Yeah, it's like, okay. But he made it clear that he wanted at least a heads up that they were going to release that statement as one of the powerful teams or conferences in the SEC in their history.
And again, he'll be the first one to tell you like who has the say in the playoff, and he's thrown that around over the last few years. It's just it's a matter of what they in the Big Ten can agree on. So we're all preparing and anticipating this 2014 playoff, but until those two sides agree, and it doesn't matter what anybody else has to say, except for maybe the TV networks. But besides them, Sankey and Petiti have to be on the same page, and right now they're not.
All right, Texas Tech. This was from a couple of days ago. They sold out the entire season ticket allotment, football, 33,000 plus. Fourth consecutive year, Red Raiders have sold out all of their season tickets. You know, it's a rabid fan base. It's also a school with a lot of students, and they are very active. Those who live in Lubbock or those who went to Texas Tech, and so nice for them. They got a lot of momentum. No surprise here. The question eventually is how much will that number possibly increase when it comes to the season ticket allotment that's available?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Do they have extra seats they're planning on building? Because they're selling it out. They're selling it out. I guess you could always try and add more on, but they just had a pretty big reimagining and reconstruction project with all their facilities, and obviously they've been touting those football facilities. for the past couple of years as the best and the biggest in the entire nation. So sellout, whatever the number is always a great thing. Not surprised. As you said, that's a rabid fan base, and that's another advantage that they have. BYU has as well over some of the other schools they're competing with nowadays, that they've got the size to have more fans every week regardless, but they also have the passion. And I think when you're on an island out there in Lubbock, as I have been before, then it's just like it's all there is. Like it's all about Texas Tech, and it's all about West Texas and all of that. And so every event is jam-packed and people are riled up for it, as opposed to what I've seen in other places where it's there, but it's not like top of mind or even of the utmost interest. Out there, it's all Red Raiders. So that definitely plays into their favor. And I think especially as you see some of these attendance cliffs and kind of the back and forth on tickets and how well teams are selling or not, that's one program, BYU being another, that I feel is going to be a leg up on most teams for the foreseeable future.
All right. When we come back, Brett McMurphy on 3, the story he wrote, ACC athletic directors call out Notre Dame's special treatment. We're all getting used. That's next. Then Tim Brando, and then also Brett Norsworthy, who covers Ole Miss post-game and pregame shows for the Ole Miss Football Network, and kind of what was yesterday like for fans of Ole Miss football. That and more. Craig Smoke, David Smoke, Rez Logan, Houston, Andrew, and Garrett, all here helping run the mothership, the Smoke Show on 365 Sports. Petty Clinic, lowt.com. Dr. Ken Petty can help you become the high-performance man that you want to be, need to be, and used to be. Want to be means what you want moving forward. Need to be, you need that. You need something. And that something might be your testosterone level has dropped, which happens with age. 1 out of every 3 or 4 men, as you get into your, especially the upper 30s, 40s, you start to have your testosterone level drop. Not everybody, but that 25 to 30 or so % that do. And when that happens, well, you lose a lot of things. Like, for example, you're not as energetic, you're not as focused, you're not sleeping as well, and your sex drive is not nearly the same. So Petty Clinic help you become the performance you want to be. Again, think about this, what you used to be, what you aren't anymore, but what you can be. Dr. Petty, contact him, pettyclinic.lowt.com. He will set you up to get your blood work, take care of that for you, get the results, and get back in touch with you. And if you need a little bit of a boost with Low T, he can do that at pettycliniclowt.com.
Broker is your Lennox Premier dealer. Right now, qualified buyers can make no payments and get no interest financing for 12 months on a new Lennox home comfort system. Conditions apply. Call Ray Broker Air Conditioning and Heating Specialists for details and a free estimate.
We're celebrating the Declaration of Deals at Allen Samuels in Waco. Right now, get $13,000 off a new Ram 1500 Lone Star, plus 2.9% for 72 months. Cash in on $13,000 off a new Ram 2500 Laramie Crew Cab, or choose 0% for 36 months, plus no payments for 90 days. Feel secure with America's best full-size truck powertrain 10-year, 100,000-mile limited warranty at Allen Samuels.
Come by, let's be friends.
Bold are the adventurous. Determined are the leaders. Faithful are the healers. At Baylor, you'll find your calling, your people, and your purpose. Dare to be you, indeed.
It's time to compete against yourself, finding too many excuses not to work out combined with bad eating habits, and Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness can help reach inside your competitive soul. Discipline, getting results you've only dreamed about, personal training, group exercise classes, and even a tanning bed, world-class tennis facility, and pickleball courts and lessons available. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness, spacious, clean workout rooms, free weights, state-of-the-art technology, weight training equipment, and no intimidation. It's time for you to react today, not tomorrow, at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
Serving Central Texas since 1889, TFNB Your Bank for Life takes pride in being more than a bank. TFNB, we remain committed to these principles. If you value them too, come join us. TFNB, your bank for life.
Extreme Texas weather calls for Ray Broker, your Lennox Premier dealer. Sign up for our year-round comfort plan and keep your home the perfect temperature no matter what the forecast is. Call or visit raybroker.com now. Ray Broker, your air conditioning and heating specialist.
This 3 o'clock hour is brought to you by QC Kinetics. Feel better, move better, live better with regenerative medicine using your body's own healing abilities for natural pain relief. No surgery, no drugs, no downtime. With locations in Dallas and Houston at QCkinetics.com. It's time for the Smoke Show on 365 Sports with Craig Smoke and David Smoke.
Some of the words and discussion in the chat room as we were wrapping up a lengthy segment with the day's topics, tweets, stories, headlines, and more. I'd rather have too many teams in the playoff than not enough, especially if they're going to, in fact, have teams like Alabama who don't deserve to get in, and they then get in and then get blown out. Well, they did win a playoff game last year. The year before that, they were left out.
Yeah, I think last year was a peculiar situation with Oklahoma and the way that worked out. They were obviously you distracted me a little bit with your pointing there. With the way that worked out with Oklahoma, like Alabama had to kind of get in there as well. And I understand that maybe you kind of side-eyed that, but they had been snubbed the year prior. And then they go and they beat Oklahoma. So I think that they more than proved that they weren't just some like fluky addition, but I understand the conversation that surrounded that. And yeah, I mean, having more than not enough, I think I'm in the same boat with you, but also I think if I had my way, then, 16 would be more ideal. But yeah, give me 24, I suppose, over 4. I did not like the 4. I talked about that a bit yesterday. I think there's a nice middle ground, but if they're going to go from one extreme to the other, then yeah, I think I'd probably rather see more teams involved than have it just be Alabama, Ohio State, the same 4 teams we saw during the 14 playoff, seemingly every year outside of a TCU or a Cincinnati that jumped in there. Yeah, give me more calamity, craziness, and more teams trying to fight for those playoff spots.
We're now joined by an incredible college football writer, Brett McMurphy, on 3, joins us on the Smoke Show in 365 Sports. Brett, man, what a week. Ole Miss taking shrapnel and strays. You've got the ACC meetings, 3 of the 4 Power 4 conferences want 24 teams. Sankey still not wherever they are. Good stuff for you, huh?
Yeah, it's just another Wednesday, right?
Yeah. It's almost like we can't wait to get, but then there'll be a buffer period. Then we'll have stuff during media days. So give us an idea, first of all, they're going to go to 16 or 24. In your opinion, will it be another year of 12, not just this year, but is it going to be no matter what, 16 or 24 in 2027?
David, I don't necessarily think it's that automatic because, again, even though, I reported today and Brett Yormark, is in line with or in step with ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips as far as wanting to go to 24. Tony Petitti wants 24. You mentioned Greg Sankey wants 16. The only 2 people that really matter is Sankey and Petitti, and those guys disagree right now. So it doesn't matter the majority wants 24. Somebody's got to get Sankey to convince him that 24 is better. And I don't see that happening, at least not anytime soon. They want 16. They feel very strongly about that. It's funny. I'm here at Amelia Island where the ACC meetings wrapped up today. And Jim Phillips said, that basically ESPN doesn't want to go beyond 16. But yet the ACC wants 24. So, again, until there's an agreement between Sankey and Petitti, we will remain at 12 teams, and they've got a December 1st deadline to work that out. I don't know how it happens. I mean, ultimately, like everything else in college athletics, it'll boil down to money. And if they can ever make the money right, where it makes sense for either 16 or 24, then that's where we end up. But I would caution you saying we're automatically going to get there next year because right now the SEC's dug in their heels pretty firmly. They've got they've got spring meetings in 2 weeks in Destin. So you're going to hear a lot about how 16's the way to go. So I just, if you're in favor of a 12-team playoff, good news, because until these guys agree, we're going to be at 12 teams.
And you know what, Brett? I'm actually okay with that. Like, I'm okay with them doing what they need to do to figure this out and not rushing something for the sake of rushing it. And 12 teams, another year of that's not so bad in my mind. But I know everybody's got their opinion on this. You touched on the part about ESPN, and I was just curious if you could dive a little further. What's the disconnect with ESPN and the ACC, do you think, on the format for the playoff?
I don't necessarily think it's disconnect. I just think ESPN, everything's finances, and it's, better for them not to have to spend more money for 2014 playoff than just going up to, staying at 12 or go to 14 and 16. Even though ESPN wants to keep it at 16, Phillips and Yormark and obviously Petiti feel like 24 is a better number. Look, there's not a right or wrong answer. It's just their preference. I mean, there's positive and negatives to both sides of it. I don't necessarily think it's a disconnect. I just think as Phillips said, people have agreed to disagree at this point. And again, the only thing that can get everyone on the same page is if everyone is whole financially, and then they're going to spin it for, well, we want more teams should be involved. We don't think teams should be left out, yada, yada, yada. Well, bottom line is it means we got the money we needed to, so now we're ready to expand to whatever that number is.
So what is the article you wrote, ACC ADs call out Notre Dame special treatment? We're all getting used. Where are they on a scale of 1 to 10 with this?
Well, as far as forcing Notre Dame to leave the conference and, not being allowed to be a member of the ACC, they're at negative 7,000. But as far as being resentful and, feel like they're tired of Notre Dame getting preferential treatment and being judged differently, they're at infinity. This isn't anything new. I had several people that were in the Big East that reached out after I reported that, and they said, wow, this brings up a lot of memories of when Notre Dame was in the Big East. And again, the ACC made this agreement. They decided to allow Notre Dame to not join in football and be a member in all other sports and be a part of their bowl lineup and get all the benefits of that. The conference overall, they love it. You talk to the individual schools, officials at the individual schools, also the coaches, and they don't like it. They feel like, Notre Dame should either be a full member or not be involved at all. After I wrote the article, I got a text from Mike Bray, the former Notre Dame basketball coach. And he said, hey, I liked your article. He goes, it reminds me when I would go to these meetings in the Big East or the ACC. And as the basketball coach of a non-football member, everyone would be on my ass saying, why don't you guys join the conference? So this isn't anything new. But what happened is it came to a head when Notre Dame opted out of the bowl game and they weren't fined. Would the ACC schools be impacted by that fine? Absolutely not. But again, they just thought, here's another example where if a school would have opted out of a bowl game, not named Notre Dame, they would have been fined. And the ACC's response was, well, there's nothing in our bylaws that addresses teams opting out of bowl games. Well, guess what? You guys know this. There's nothing in the Big 12 bylaws that addresses that either. But Iowa State and Kansas State were hit for $500,000 each when they opted out of their bowl game. So when this happened, a lot of people at the ACC schools were like, here we go again. Here's another exception for Notre Dame. Here's more special treatment. Bottom line, they're not going anywhere. If people are like, why doesn't the ACC force them to join, give them an ultimatum? Because if they did, Notre Dame would walk. And some people are like, why doesn't the college football playoff require teams to be in a conference? Well, that's never going to happen because Greg Sankey will make sure that never happens, because he knows if that happens and Notre Dame is forced by some college football playoff rule or some other way to force them into a conference, they're going to go to the Big Ten. If they wanted to join the ACC full time, they would have already done it. They don't want to do it. They're not going to join the SEC. The Big Ten makes the most sense. So I think they will remain an independent. I've said this a long time. I think they'll remain an independent until the end of time or the world ends, or somehow the finances between being an independent and being a conference is so greatly different that they're forced to do it for financial reasons. I don't see that happening anytime soon.
So elsewhere around there, with all that being said, Jim Phillips also, you had tweeted this out, said this is the healthiest that we've been in my tenure. He talked about how the TV ratings are up. So, I mean, there's still this Notre Dame issue that's just a kind of a pesky, annoying thing for some of the teams. But outside of that, is it pretty positive, I guess, around the ACC today and yesterday?
Well, I've been coming to this probably about, I don't know, God, maybe 10 years now. And just a quick cliff notes of what's been reported the last few years I was here. 1 year there was Florida State trying to go to the Big 12.
Right.
There was Florida State and Clemson recently trying to get out of the ACC, how that was going to happen. There was the Magnificent Seven, the 7 ACC schools that were considering breaking off and forming their own conference. So, yeah, compared to all that, hey, this is the salad days for the ACC.
So, Ole Miss, what a day yesterday, huh? They look left, they get slapped in the face. They look right, they get slapped in the face. They take one in the back of the head. My goodness, what a day it was. It kind of was fun, and yet again, most of it unnecessary. Your thoughts?
Yeah, and that was not orchestrated. I know that for a fact. I actually got a text from somebody at Ole Miss saying what's going on with this orchestrated hit job on Ole Miss. I mean, Lane's Lane, he did the Vanity Fair piece, he said that. Matt Hayes of USA Today, he wrote the story, talked to Sark. That interview was a few weeks ago, and it just happened to post yesterday. So it wasn't this concentrated effort of, hey, let's slam Ole Miss. It just happened that the timing happened that way. If Matt would have reported his article, back when he talked to him, that would have came out a couple weeks ago or a week ago. And then again, the Kiffin thing that happened, with Lane doing the Vanity Fair piece. So that was just a coincidence. And then of course, John Summerall, the Florida coach, piles on tweeting that Florida does offer advanced basket weaving, that's a great line. But if you don't have a winning season, then Summerall, that's going to come back to haunt you.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Lane can do the memes and all the fun stuff on socials, but he wins. Like when you don't do that and you're just the meme coach or the guy chiming in, it doesn't come across as well. But I did find his interaction, just jumping in there, pretty funny. Brett, is it just that Ole Miss is winning and there's teams paying more attention to them? Obviously, the Lane thing's self-explanatory. We know what he's trying to accomplish there, but is just Texas really pissed about a recruit or two they lost? Why do you think there is seemingly, whether it's spread out or not, but just why is there kind of shots directed at Ole Miss, you think, right now?
Yeah, I mean, you brought up a great point. I think part of it is they're winning. They're having success. They were in the playoff. They came down to the final play of almost knocking off Miami in the semis. So, yeah, if Ole Miss is 3-9, nobody's talking about Ole Miss. Obviously, there's been some, allegations, quote marks, of tampering and different things. Dabo Swinney's been very outspoken about Ole Miss recruiting his players. I asked him about that the other day. He said, quote, "I've heard nothing from the NCAA about it." I don't know specifically Sark's issues with Ole Miss, but, there's obviously got to be something there. I don't think he's saying that as a solid for Dabo, or he's saying that because he's got Lane's back or anything like that. But certainly, the fact that Ole Miss is having success, and it is, as I've mentioned to you guys probably a dozen times, it's the Wild Wild West now, with apologies to the Wild Wild West. And so Ole Miss, for whatever reason, has been able to take advantage of that. And maybe it's rubbed some people the wrong way, especially now that they're having a great deal of success.
It's been quite a couple of days, Brett, and obviously spring meetings have a lot to do with that as well. You have the media days in July. Do you think we'll get as much fun or have as much fun or some shrapnel in July, or everything calm down? The commissioners will say, okay, everybody play nice.
Yeah, I'm afraid not. I wish we would, but I think you guys realize it too. Once we get the media days, everybody's kind of pre-programmed on what they should say, what they want to say, what their talking points are. Now it's close enough to the season where they're not as freewheeling, if you will, as they are now. I mean, now it's, the season's still a few months off, so they're not in coach mode, if you will, or coach speak. So if you want some great headlines, we usually don't get them at media days because it's pretty much everything's prepackaged. They've talked to their PR directors. Hey, this is what we want to say. This is what we don't want to say. But stay tuned for SEC meetings in 2 weeks in Destin. If Sankey doesn't put a gag order on everybody, that thing should be a barrel of monkeys for sure.
Yeah, and man, gosh, I can only imagine what might come out of there. So yeah, definitely looking forward to that and the content that will follow. Brett, you did have one other tweet that I wanted to bring up before we let you go here about the Amazon basketball games. Jim Phillips said Duke received permission from ESPN to schedule the future non-con game on Amazon or games on Amazon. Michigan did not get required approval from Big Ten. So it's possible, you said, that Wolverines could be replaced as Duke's opponent. I just find this, I know we've been doing the neutral site games in football, but this seems like another step forward on that. And just how much has that been part of the discussion in the last couple of days?
Yeah, certainly it has. Mike Alford, the Florida State AD, said he talked to Jim Phillips about that deal to try to get more information and try to figure out, is this a possible new revenue stream? And that's why it's being done. And everyone's trying to figure out ways to get more revenue into their programs, whether it's neutral site games, whether it's going to a streaming service. But to get on a streaming service, every conference, their rights are owned by specific networks. And, Duke had to go to ESPN and get ESPN's blessing to move a game off ESPN. And because of that, I was told that Duke gave ESPN some future considerations, whether that's playing certain teams, whether that's playing in certain tournaments or certain windows, whatever that is, they did that. The issue is that apparently Michigan did not do the same with the Big Ten, and the Big Ten did not sign off on that. So you can't you've got to deal with the Big Ten. You can't just say, hey, we're going to go appear on, XYZ network that's not affiliated with the conference unless you get permission. So if the Big Ten and Michigan cannot get an agreement, then Duke would have to find another opponent. And somebody else asked me, for instance, Florida State and Georgia, they're going to play a neutral site game in 2028. I tweeted the other day, there's 7 cities that they're looking at. Could that game potentially go to Amazon? Absolutely it could, but only if ESPN allows it to move off the ESPN network, since ESPN has the rights to the SEC and ACC games. So obviously ESPN's not doing that as a favor because, oh, wow, here you go, guys. Go ahead and we'll let Amazon take our game. They're getting compensated financially to allow that to happen. Kind of the similar but different to how they subleased some of the playoff games last year. If ESPN can be made whole and feels like it's not a huge detriment to their network, then they could allow, a game or two to move to a streaming service. But it's not as simple as a streaming service coming in and say, hey, we want to televise the Baylor-Oklahoma State game. Here's X amount of money. Let's go. Obviously, they've got to get that approved by the conference and by the network to allow that to move off of a Big 12 affiliated network in the Baylor-Oklahoma State example.
Hey, go get some work done, would you? Thank you very much, Brett. You are right there in the middle of it, the epicenter of college football, and it just keeps going. And look forward to seeing you in Frisco in July.
Yeah, talk to you soon.
Thank you, Brett McMurphy, with us on 3 on the prowl at ACC spring meetings. Media days, of course, come up in July.
Yeah, I think the SEC media days, or spring meetings, I should say, ought to be really interesting. Just a lot of combustible elements there, maybe more than normal. And so I think see Sark cross paths in the hallway with Pete Golding or whatever the case may be. It's going to be a lot of fun interactions. And I think the Amazon stuff's really interesting. We've seen the proliferation of the neutral site games, much to the dismay of a lot of college football fans out there. But what they're trying to now do in basketball potentially is a whole different animal. I mean, go and play them on places like Amazon and have them separate from the main TV deals. That's a whole new thing entirely. And like you said, it's easily explainable. It's just trying to find new sources of revenue streams. But still, it's pretty fascinating that we're about to start walking into those waters and what that could look like. And is it something that explodes and now that's the next big thing where you're having to have Amazon to watch like Oklahoma play USC or something? Or like what does that look like if this moves forward? Or is it just a Duke that has the ability to schedule these types of games occasionally? I don't know, but it's interesting, and it's also not as interesting from the standpoint of as a fan. I don't know how much I love that all.
When they announced the game and what they were going to do, I said, that makes sense. And then, of course, there was some little, wait a minute, that you may not be able to do that. So I'm sure they've got, they would think they had their ducks in a row. But if that starts happening in college football, yeah, can you imagine what a Texas-Ohio State game could be if they put it on a streamer?
Yeah, but how would Fox or ESPN react to that? And that's the thing.
They wouldn't like to do that. All right. When we come back, Tim Brando. It's been, about a month? He has plenty on his mind. Been about a couple
of weeks.
Has it been a couple of weeks? Well, he's got a lot to say. He always does. Not everybody agrees with him. We love having him on. So do you. You've told us that. And he's next. Tim Brando of Fox Sports. This is 365 Sports. Stonewood Dental in Robinson, Texas. My dentist, Dr. Steve Childress, traded a couple of text messages with him today in Robinson, Texas, where I go and get my, every 6 months and make sure I get my teeth cleaned and also check for any bumps and bruises. Or if something happens between now and then, he is great at being there for you when it comes to something that you did not see, something unforeseen, or something that maybe flares up in your mouth as far as your molars or something else. He's really good at that. I trust him. I've been going to him now ever since COVID. He's helped me during off hours on a couple of occasions, and I appreciate him for that. He's got a group of dentists inside of Stonewood Dental. Dr. Steve Childress, my dentist, and others. What a great staff from the time you walk to the door till you walk out, you go back to your car. Stonewood Dental in Robinson, Texas.
In the major leagues for 24 years, and let me tell you, I can feel it in my joints. Shoulders, elbows, and knees. Trust me, pain doesn't retire when you do. I tried everything to get rid of the pain. Nothing worked until QC Kinetics.
Baseball legend Roger Clemens and other patients are getting lasting relief with QC Kinetics regenerative treatments. No surgery.
I trust QC Kinetics. You should too. Let's commit to getting rid of all the pain.
Schedule your free consultation today. QC Kinetics. Better starts here.
With over 25 years of excellence in IT, Carrion Solutions is your trusted technology partner. From managed IT services to cutting-edge cybersecurity, our expert team delivers tailored solutions that drive success. Our portfolio includes products such as Veeam, Bitdefender, Microsoft, Cisco, and Fortinet. Call David Carrion and his team of experts. Call 888-522-2221 or visit us at carrionsolutions.com.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at alliancebanktexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Hello, I'm Camille Johnson with Camille Johnson Realtors. We specialize in selling residential real estate agent all across our community, and we love serving all types of families. We have been in business at Camille Johnson Realtors for almost 9 years, and I have been a residential real estate agent for almost 40 years. And we love our partnership with 365. So thank you for partnering with me, and thank you so much to all of my clients who have made our company a success.
Don't gamble on a used car. Get the value of pre-owned without the risk with Car Bravo at Richard Car Motors. Every Car Bravo pre-owned car and truck comes with a no-gamble peace of mind that includes pre-negotiated upfront low pricing, a thorough multi-point inspection, a vehicle history report, a 12-month, 12,000-mile bumper-to-bumper warranty, a no-obligation 10-day or 500-mile return policy. Get all the value of pre-owned with the peace of mind of new. Shop smarter. Drop in to test drive today or see our selection at richardcar.com.
At Richard Car, we give you more. Pepperoni Magnifico. Pepperoni Magnifico. Marco's Pepperoni Magnifico. Classic and crispy cut pepperoni, 3 melty cheeses, all on our fresh-made dough. And starting at just $12.99 for a large, it's no wonder Marco's was named America's favorite pizza chain.
This 4 o'clock hour is brought to you by Stonewood Dental, your one-stop shop for your dental needs, specializing in teeth cleaning, fillings, crowns, sealants, root canals, IV sedation, extractions, implants, bridges, dentures, full mouth restorations, and bioaesthetic dentistry. Our priority is your comfort from the moment you walk through the front door. Stonewood Dental in Robinson, Texas. It's time for the Smoke Show on 365 Sports with Craig Smoke and David Smoke.
And here we go on this Wednesday afternoon. Tim Brando has been frothing at the mouth since the last time we had him on. I've been following him. He has been on fire. And that was over the 2014 college football playoff idea and expansion. And then we have yesterday with Ole Miss, Sark, Sumrall, and even Lane Kiffin as well. And Tim Brando, Fox Sports, joins us. Can you hear us okay, Tim? We got it? Tim Brando from Fox Sports. Can you hear us okay? No, Garrett, I'm not sure where we are. I see him. All right, let's see if we can try to work that out to get to Tim Brando here in just a second. He says that he does not hear us. So I'm not sure if he has us on mute or not. But, I mean, think about this. The 2014 playoff, he's been fired up over that, and we'll get to that. Now the Kiffin and Sark and Sumrall and Ole Miss and anything else in between will get the fired up Tim Brando here momentarily.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say again, I think the Sumrall thing's a little separate from the others that he's kind of getting lumped in. I thought his was kind of a harmless, fun sort of jumping into the fray, albeit like Brett said, you better go win some games if you're going to be the guy that jumps into conversations like that moving forward. So I don't think that, like, especially compared to what Lane Kiffin said, it's in even the same realm. And then Sark and even Muschamp before that. I mean, obviously they've had this on their minds for a while in regards to Ole Miss and just some of the things Sark's particularly tired of that he spoke on. So, but yeah, I mean, Sumrall, like I said, I wasn't familiar with his game. And now I'm sure there's a bunch of LSU fans that the moment that Florida stumbles to some degree, they're going to be in his mentions, and that's part of the deal there. But yeah, there's a lot to talk about with Tim, and so hopefully we can get this connection worked out here pretty soon because, yeah, whether it's the playoff or what's all going on at ACC Media Days or the SEC warming up for – I keep saying media days. What is it? Conference meetings is actually spring meetings is what it is. Or the SEC getting warmed up for the season by these coaches going at each other. There is no shortage of stuff that's been going on these last couple of days. It's been fun from that standpoint.
Yeah, I'm going to say this on the air. Rez and Garrett, he says his iPad says that he's on, but he can't hear us. So not sure we could pivot to a phone call, but damn it, that's not what I want to do. Not with him. We want to get that great background and also see Tim Brando. So let's see what we could possibly do. Rez, in the meantime, as we try to tread water here for a second, let's go to one more. We have one more story from the headlines that we haven't had. It's been out there for a couple of days or so. The Rose Bowl, $30 million expansion, not of the size, but $30 million with some new bells and whistles. It's something that's been needed for quite some time, funded by private donations and sponsors, featuring luxury suite amenities, including a 360-degree bar. And there are some of the pictures of what's going on in one of the end zone areas.
That's great for certain UCLA football fans that'll be able to enjoy that. And, yeah, it seems like we've had, for all the talk about lack of money, a lot of stadium upgrades and projects that are going on. Kind of touched on Texas Tech earlier and the enormous amount of reconstruction that they did and upgrading that they did. And I think we don't see quite the crazy off the wall amenities that were simply like, we have to spend money on something like, how do we make the craziest barbershop possible? Or how do we have crimson colored waterfalls, or some of the stuff that was there towards the tail end of just the frivolous spending. Now though, that you're still seeing, you kind of wondered if the facilities and things like that would go to the wayside, and clearly they haven't. They're still very much a priority because the fan experience is a priority. So yeah, sounds like a good thing for the Rose Bowl, which could probably stand to to be modernized a little bit further, and it sounds like a good thing for the UCLA football fans, however many of them will be there.
We are joined by Tim Brando, Fox Sports on 365 Sports, and also the SMOAK Show. And Tim, thank you very much. Appreciate your time, and sorry about a little bit of this and that, the gremlins that are there.
Yeah.
Where do we start? Because it was the 24 game or team college football expansion. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it regulars? And then all of a sudden, Ole Miss goes walking down the street and there's guys coming out of the saloon firing bullets.
Yeah. Lane Kiffin happens and the world stops, and it's all about the Lane train. That's the nature of the beast with the head football coach down at LSU. You probably saw on social media, I put out one of my on Brandos today, the absurdity of the talking season. And gosh, we got a long way to go, fellas. I mean,
Wow.
it's still a couple of weeks. I think the ACC's next week, the SEC's the week after that, Big 12's I think in 2 weeks, the end of the month of May, 26th, 27th, somewhere in there. I mean, we got a lot of time between now and toe meeting leather, and the vitriol from the coaches. Even when you see the commissioner of the Southeastern Conference, virtue signaling about how great his league is, not being part of the Friday night money grab, which is sickening for someone who, during COVID, I thought was the strongest leader college football had. I gave great praise to Greg Sankey when, Warren was doing an awful job. The Big Ten academicians were ready to fold their tents and go home and not participate at all. And Sankey pulled up his bootstraps, took hold of things, and we found a way to have a season in 2020 and 21. You think about all of that, okay, in the aftermath of that. Now suddenly, because he's not the king, his league has not been in a championship game for 3 straight years. He's going to take pot shots at other teams and conferences for playing on Friday nights by using the old, tired high school football argument, which last I checked, we went through years ago when ESPN, not Fox, ESPN, the very company he's in bed with his almighty SEC, decided to start having Friday night games. Why did he make that statement? Well, I'll tell you why he made the statement. Because he was in front of a congregation at the Alabama Sports Hall of Fame, and he wanted to make a little noise, poke his chest out a little bit in front of a media that he knows is solidly with him, because Tony Petitti doesn't return phone calls to them. And he wanted to take a shot across the bow on the very day and weekend when Fox had announced its Friday night schedule. I think that's beneath the commissioner of the Southeastern Conference. I think he should be working with all the other commissioners, and he should be looking forward to bringing everyone together as he did during COVID, as opposed to taking shots at the very people that, by the way, already have a working relationship. That draft between the Big 12 and the network partnerships that they have includes the programming people at Fox and ESPN working in tandem, to get that thing done, to pick the games. So they have a working relationship. Why divide? That was a divisive statement to make, all to make himself look good at a time when his league has not participated in a championship game in 3 years. He's also, I think, being affected by presidents, chancellors, and specifically 2 ADs that have gone on record about 24. Danny White at Tennessee, Greg Byrne at Alabama, who says that the Southeastern Conference Championship game should go the way of the dinosaur. I'm sure he doesn't like reading and hearing that from the athletic director at the state institution that's carried the banner for the league for its the majority of its history, Alabama. So all is not well in his world, and I'm sure he believes that he's got to make statements such as that to make himself feel better. So while it's easy to go after Kiffin for being Kiffin, I don't know that he can, as commissioner of the league, censure Kiffin in any way when he's making the same mistakes as a commissioner that his coaches, in my opinion, are making, like Sark saying what he did, along with what Kiffin's saying. I don't, there are rules in place that you're not supposed to go after other member institutions and defame them publicly. He could invoke some of that, but I don't think he would dare do that on the basis of some of what he's already been guilty of himself.
Yeah, Tim, it seems like for a lot of years he could kind of live high and above everybody else and always sort of punch down. And now it's a bad look when he chooses to do it. But you also better hope that next TV contract doesn't include ESPN going, we'll give you a bunch more money, but you got to play Friday games, because now you've kind of dug yourself the hole of, well, we're too good to do the Friday games. So I think that would be humorous if the next round of deals is like, yeah, you want an increase? Okay, well, we won South Carolina versus Tennessee on a Friday night. Yeah.
That may be wishful thinking, because they got the ACC to do that for them. That partnership will help them with that. But it's just, again, we can make light of it, but it's just really sad. And that's what, as I said, the absurdity blows my mind, that Kiffin would say what he said, and then Sark would come out. And by the way, I get the fact that Ole Miss is the school that is attracting the attention for the tampering. Clemson began that. That was a Dabo, Pete Golding thing. And maybe some of that has filtered into Sark's head a little bit. But the last thing we also need to see is millionaire coaches at privileged institutions, blue bloods like Texas and LSU, taking shots at other schools and other coaches in a public forum. These guys are going to be getting together in Destin in a couple of weeks. I suggest that all of them go into a room, make sure there's some smoke in there. If they don't smoke cigars, get pipes, something. And then get some hard liquor, okay? Real hard liquor. Maybe some after-dinner drinks, Cavazier, an Amaretto, some Grand Marnier, or, Macallan 24. Drink it neat. Don't put any ice in, all right? Solve your damn problems privately. We don't need to hear your whining, your gnashing of teeth about this and that that's going on in what you believe is an unsustainable system that has made you a millionaire. You can all shut up, okay, and start talking about doing it together to make the sport as good as it can be, even with the other major issues that we know you inherited, that everyone did, because the NCAA was incompetent and kicked the can down to the curb for 15 years and put you in this mess with NIL and portal and all that you're having to deal with. I understand your jobs are tougher now. I do. I get that. But going after one another in a public forum this way, that doesn't give a lot of the really intelligent fans much hope at a time when they're inundated this time of year with the sky is falling, this is horrible, it'll never work, which is all we hear all spring and summer long, ad nauseum. And all of a sudden, the game kicks off in late August, early September, and it's forgotten about. And they're watching in record numbers. The ratings are through the roof. The money's really good, but guess what? Even all that money that's coming in is not enough. It is not enough. And that's exactly why they're going to eventually have to go to 24, where they're Greg Sankey from his beautiful pulpit down in Alabama in his office that costs 1 cent a year for him to reside in. He'll have to deal with it, like it or not.
Yeah, we actually started off the show talking about a lot of those kickoff announcements that were coming out yesterday, and it was like, if you don't want to hear that, we can talk politics if you want to. But yeah, there's a lot of that and plenty of that. But it has been refreshing to just see, like, here's the Friday night game and here's the prime time game, and I look forward to that as well. And I'm sure we'll get into some of that. But you have mentioned Lane a couple times, so he of course said, "Oh, well, I was misunderstood," and I say, we know you're smarter than that. You play dumb, but you try to play dumb when it's convenient to be dumb. But you know exactly what you're saying. Was he just trying to knock Ole Miss down a peg because of sour grapes, or just because they're now his competitor? Like, was there anything more intentional than just that to it, do you feel like?
No, listen, I don't dislike Lane Kiffin. I've defended him here and other places for years. I don't think he's a bad person. I think he suffers from needing way too much attention too often, which, by the way, some of my critics might say the same thing. They say that about a lot of people in the media, right? Smoke. I mean, they would.
Yep.
But I don't know of anybody that has an insatiable appetite to be like, I don't think he minds this attention. I really don't. I think he thrives on it. And all the people down in South Louisiana who are working really hard to spin it to defend him, and they are doing that as we speak. He loves that. He laps it up. He, just as he did when Ole Miss people did the same thing. And I remember telling some of them, you know, I've got a son-in-law that's a graduate and a daughter that's a graduate, and I would be like, beware, beware. And now they see that, and the proof is in the pudding, going all the way back to 2009 and that singular year that he had at Tennessee when Mike Slive had to intercede between he and Urban Meyer at their SEC media days that year in 2009. Here we are 18 years later, and the same excrement is taking place with him. Hasn't changed. He's older, but I dare say he's not matured. You know, some of the things that he said while he was at Ole Miss at the end, that makeover documentary that ESPN was conned into producing about his stay in Ole Miss and how it galvanized his family. His ex-wife came back. His daughter, who wasn't living with him, changed addresses, moved from California. The hospitality from those in the Magnolia State and specifically in Oxford, how he couldn't get over how wonderful people were to one another. And it was life-altering. And, oh, by the way, I needed Ole Miss more than Ole Miss needed me. All that was said less than a year ago, fellas. Mm-hmm. That was said, like 9-10 months ago. None of that matters now. None of that matters now. As I said about Keith Olbermann, in my experience at ESPN, when he came in and out before I left in 89-90, he doesn't just burn bridges, he napalms them.
Yeah.
Okay. And I saw one line that was better than that. Kiffin may be the only guy that burns down a bridge with himself on it. That might be the best line I think I've read about him. But I don't think he's a bad person. Here's what I believe. And part of this is my media background and to some extent my political interests, because I do follow politics. He chose to do this with Vanity Fair precisely because he thought he would reach an audience that was not the same audience that 365 is, or On 3 is, or The Athletic is, or, all the other sports websites that he could have done interviews with, even ESPN. Okay. He could have done a sit down with Dan Wetzel if he had wanted. He wanted to talk to a broader based mass appeal audience because this was about him and promoting him first. Okay. And this is a writer from New York with a New York-based publication that leans liberal, and everyone knows it. And with that writer, who, by the way, I saw interviewed by Feinbaum yesterday, he was tremendous. He was great. He was honest. He was transparent. He admitted that he thought Kiffin was full of excrement. But he also said that Kiffin had a conscience, that he did 4 hours with him, and he did a couple of hours before practice. Then after practice, Kiffin texted him and said, I'd really like to go over that Ole Miss thing one more time because I think that might possibly upset some people. So he has a conscience, right? He has a conscience. And so they sit down, it's brought up again, and he doesn't equivocate. He goes right back to it. He says it over again. Well, the writer had to include it. I mean, he had to. Kiffin saw an opportunity, seized on it. This part is calculating. He seized on an opportunity because of his narcissism to appeal to a wider audience that may have questioned his leadership for leaving and abandoning a team that he had taken all the way to a position to win a national championship. And right when they were on the precipice of it, he bailed. He did all the things that as coach he would tell his guys never to do, but he did it himself. Why did he do it? Because he thought, my career is more important than my team. That's why he got hammered by me and others when he did what he did to Ole Miss. So I'm sure that's still in his head. So he's still trying to find a way to justify with any form of media why he did what he did. So bringing up race in that vernacular, okay, from a recruiting standpoint, would seem a good foundation point for him to drive home the segregated South, Mississippi burning, all of that stuff, especially with a liberal magazine and with a liberal publication based in New York, not understanding that the very people he was hurting were those that he had championed within the last year. That to the detriment of not just Mississippi, not just the South as a whole, but to the very school whom without he wouldn't have a $91 million package and a $14 million annual purse. He nuked them all. He threw them all under the bus simultaneously. It is by far and away the most despicable thing in print I have ever seen a sitting coach say about a program that he coached, representing a league he's still in a part of the country he still represents. He showed no understanding of context. For those of us that grew up, and I did, in the Jim Crow South, it was the most offensive thing I think I've ever read in today's college football world. And for him to come back in his apology and say, if I offended, if you only say if when you really didn't mean to apologize. Lane, what you did was offensive, period.
Yeah, it was one of those where you stepped in it and you tried to clean it off your shoe, and all you did was step in another big mess, and it was the one that you put on the floor in the first place.
Yeah, and by the way, if my tone gets emotional when I go down that road, Smokey, you're about my age. You know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
Okay, I was part of it. I was part of that Remember the Titans era, starting in the 7th grade on my basketball team. And then when forced busing came in and the black kids came in on buses, I was moved to the third guy coming off the bench. And I saw how they had been treated. And I watched parents that we thought were friends of ours that were having sit-ins and were raising their children in a different way than I was being raised. And between the ages of 12 and 15 in the 60s, going into 1970, which is what, 70, 71, I mean, David, it was a hard time. And even early in a career, when you go and work someplace else, somebody looks on your, a potential employer and says, well, you don't sound like you're from Louisiana. You think I liked hearing that? You think I liked hearing that? That kind of stuff follows everyone from the boomer generation that lived through the Jim Crow South. And I remember saying, my dad raised me. He was a Blue Dog Democrat. In addition to being a pioneer of sports and television in my hometown, he was also an advertising agent that had a lot of clients, including politicians. Joe D. Wagoner was one of his clients. Delaceps Morrison, who ran for governor against John McKithen, was one of his. And these were not George Wallace Democrats, okay? They believed that what was going on in the South was wrong at that time. And so it was an awakening for me when I saw some of the things I saw by the time I got old enough to realize what was going on, which was at about 12, 13, 14 years of age, So people like us that grew up in that time, he clearly had no understanding of that. He was deaf to that. He had no clue. Here's a surfer dude who grew up in a privileged household with an NFL coach as a dad, and he had no context to go with.
Yeah, I think the thing that was just bizarre to me, Tim, was like, do you know what conference you're in and who all's in this league with you? Like, it's not.
Hello. Yeah. Hello.
Yeah. It's like not just Mississippi, pal. It's like every state in the league had their their time with that all that you mentioned and more. Yeah.
And by the way, I mentioned my daughters, and I do want to say this. Even when my daughter was going to school, and Archie Manning helped recruit her and my family to Ole Miss in 2008, I guess it was. She was graduated in 2012. She had been in student government and was president of the state student council in Louisiana. And when she got on campus, became a member of SGA, she supported a young black girl to be the president at Ole Miss when she was a freshman. The work that had been done in those years after Tommy Tuberville brought it to light in the late 90s, and Warner Alford had been AD, they got rid of Colonel Reb, they got rid of the Confederate flag, appealing to their fan base. Listen, the KKK would come into Oxford from outside Oxford just to make it look like it was Ole Miss's. That stuff went on, okay? Protesters from outside Mississippi would come in. That kind of stuff was what her generation was having to deal with in like 2000, the Eli Manning era, okay? And after Eli, like 11, 12, 13, 14, when Houston Nutt was coaching. So it was still kind of going on to some extent. They've worked so hard at Ole Miss to rid themselves of that narrative. And you've seen the school grow exponentially. You've seen enrollment grow. And by the way, what Sark said about the basket weaving, a clear shot at ACT and SAT scores for standardized testing being utilized to get into the school. Shame on Sark, too, for piling on with that. Because, as you guys well know, you can be a hell of a student, you can be very successful, and still do poorly on standardized tests. And so, yeah, Ole Miss is one of the easier schools to get into, but it is not one of the easiest schools to get out of. So that kind of stereotyping is also excrement, okay? And it should not be delivered by a head coach of a member institution in the Southeastern Conference. I was really, really shocked at what Sark did. He should be above that big time.
I thought almost everything he said, a lot of it I agreed with, but then that was, again, an unnecessary shot.
Unnecessary.
I got an 18 on the ACT and barely got into junior college. So I'm a little bit sensitive with
I
that.
got a 19. I beat you by one. Math killed me. I was killing it. I was killing it in English lit. But math killed me.
Yeah. So, I knew we'd have a lot to say. We got you on for hopefully a nice chunk, Tim. So let's do this. We got
you bet.
Now the 24-team college football playoff, the ACC, Big 12, Big 10 are all on board. We know the SEC and Sankey is not. Notre Dame is on board, I guess, with it being a part of it. They got left out last year. So is the debate why jump to 24? Is the debate how it affects the entire season? I saw some of your feedback on that. So I don't see how they're going to go to 24 right away, but it appears.
No, they can't. No, that's all. That's all we're jumping to 24 now crap is propaganda by those that are anti any expansion, want to keep it at 12. That's all garbage. They're going to go to 16 before they go to 24, even if the SEC goes kicking and screaming. They can't go right to 24.
Yeah,
It'll be 16 first. But the interesting part of that is contractually, okay, the moment they go to 16, ESPN doesn't have control of the whole deal. Okay? 14 is the last number where it can stay in this contract. At 16, now you're talking about the rights and the bidding process beginning for a new calendar and for a new postseason. And that's one of the sticking points and one of the reasons why I'm sure Sankey is playing hardball, saying, well, my championship game is worth 80 to 100 million and the other championship games aren't. And until you show me how I can make goods on the money that we would lose from that game, I'm not budging. I'm sure that's the grounds he's utilizing to stand firm on. But here's what has happened since last year at this time. Yormark, Phillips, the other commissioners of the group of 5 or group of 6, if you prefer calling them that now with the Pac-12 coming in, they're all on it. They're all in with the 24 now. Ever since Petiti said, okay, we'll just do 24, and they'll be all at larges. We'll keep the group of 5 taken care of, and we'll go. As soon as he said it wasn't going to be a playoffs within the league to get automatic qualifiers in, and he said, let's just open it up, make it all at larges, that's when everybody flipped the switch. And Sankey's having a real hard time dealing with that.
Tim, what do you think about the Notre Dame overall situation? There's I'm of the opinion and have been all along, they're not going to ever not be independent if they have any say in it whatsoever. They're going to have to be squeezed into joining anything. And we had Brett McMurphy on earlier, and he said, and look, if they have to join anything, it's not going to be the ACC, it's going to be the Big Ten.
Yeah.
Just wondering if you had any thoughts on just kind of that marriage as everybody's getting together for those spring meetings, and there's some anonymous ACC leaders who clearly don't like how Notre Dame's get special treatment, but at the same time, that's what you have to deal with, right? I mean,
yeah,
I'd rather deal with it than not have them in the mix at all, I would think.
Yeah. The ACC is having to deal with the seeds that were sown by the presidents and chancellors of that conference when John Swofford was commissioner. A man, but by the way, I really do think a lot of, but he was coerced. Okay, it wasn't Swofford that necessarily wanted an ACC network, but his presidents and his chancellors were going blank for brains because the SEC had their network, and they, by God, wanted one too. And so ESPN said, okay, we'll oblige. We'll give you your network. We'll give you your channel, but here's what it's going to cost you. And they're basically being paid about 20 years behind the times for the rights to their games. So they're putting their games on Fridays. They're putting their games all over, 2 and U. And, the bang for the buck that they're getting isn't what it needs to be. But the other thing, when Swofford cut his deal, and Kevin White and he worked together really strongly when Kevin was at Notre Dame, who did a really good job. And then, of course, the next athletic director, I think, took him to another level, did a great job. And basically, the ACC during COVID saved Notre Dame, saved them. And that's why you hear them many times chirping about, well, they got to come to us. Well, they had a time period there when Swofford was right. If they were going to go anywhere, it had to be the ACC contractually. That window is closed. And so now you're right. They could go, and that might be the ace in the hole for the Big Ten moving forward. But I doubt it. I doubt it really does get used because there's history between the Big Ten and Notre Dame too, going back to when Jim Delaney was commissioner, with some of the institutions especially. But this move to 24 and moving to 16 first, which is what's being proposed. And David, to give you a timeline, I don't think they'll get to 24 until, 2030. I think it would be 16 for at least 2.5 to 3 years because of the contracts that currently exist for all the different leagues, for the calendar that they know has to be repaired, moving everything back a couple of weeks. That's going to take some doing. Okay. So staying at 16 for at least a handful of years is probably what has to happen first. But, and by the way, as I said, when you go to 16, you're talking about involving other networks besides ESPN. The bidding process would begin, and I think that's the concept. That's the idea that Tony Petiti believes is going to help college football sustain itself. Even Disney's money, all that money that they've got, okay, and they got more of it than anybody. They got more volume than anybody. But their shareholders are going to find out this year that all that money that ABC has been hemorrhaging in so many places that ESPN was able to pick up because of its profit margin, that money's drying up. Why is it drying up? Bad deal making. They overpaid on the NBA. They overpaid on college football. Okay? They are still the worldwide leader. I'll give them that. But for college football to grow and be sustainable, and for the $20.5 million nut that all these schools are on the hook for, plus all the other amenities that they need for the NIL and portal era to continue, and especially before we get any thought process of collective bargaining coming for the NIL and the portal, they're going to have to get other networks involved. And by other, I don't mean maybe just two. Okay, it may be more than that. But they're going to need it if they're going to sustain it. And that's why 24 does, whether fans like it or not, whether the print media likes it or not. That's why it's got to work. There's only one way you're going to get this money for all these expenses that you got to take care of that you're on the hook for. It's for creating revenue streams through television inventory and the college football playoff. That's the only way you do it.
So, Tim, I mentioned at the beginning that we are starting to get some game times and some broadcasting details, and I've seen Fox has released a couple. We know like the big mega matchups there. Oklahoma and Michigan, big noon kickoff's going to be there. Got Ohio State, Texas, and there's been some others that have trickled out. Do you already kind of start to hear what you're going to be planning on doing? And like where does your mind go when you start to see like the details? Does it really matter to you at this point, or is it kind of refreshing like it is for me to just see some of like, oh, the season is getting closer and here's what we can start going towards?
Well, I'll tell you what I do want. And I don't know that it'll happen, but I'll tell you what I do want. I believe, and this wasn't the case the first couple of years, but I do think the Friday night schedule, take a long look at that Friday night schedule we announced. And I'm going to tell you, I think that's one of the reasons why, in fact, I think it's the key reason why Sankey did what he did, said what he said to that group of media at the Alabama Sports Hall of Fame.
A lot of Big Ten games.
Yeah, and big name Big Ten teams. Mm-hmm. Oregon, a couple of times. Indiana, the defending national champions, at home against Northwestern. Northwestern the next week opens its brand new state-of-the-art facility there on the lake. They'll have it ready, I think, mid-September. And come week 5, I believe it is, they host Penn State. Penn State's a hell of a story this year when you think about it. That's a really good game, fellas. A really good game. Oregon's got to go to Michigan State a little later in the year. Those are good games. I mean, if you're looking at the second or third game that I would be looking at just to call on a Saturday, and I measure that against the Friday schedule, that Texas Tech Houston game, I'm telling you, and Kansas, Missouri, week 2 at Kansas. Sorry, SEC, one of your members has to play on a Friday night against a border rivalry in their old conference. I mean, those are important games with a lot of eyeballs. And so I'm telling Devin and I'm telling our producers, it'll be their decision. I certainly, it's going to have to be their idea. But if they called me right now and said, hey, Tim, we got these 10 games, 14 weeks. Would you do those Fridays? I'd take it in a heartbeat. I would take it in a heartbeat. I really would.
Tim, one of the things about the 24 or any more expansion above 12 means that most likely ESPN can't do them all.
Right. 16, if they go to 16, you got another contract coming.
All right. So you work for a network that covers a lot of football. Mm-hmm. Who else would be involved if that possibility opens up?
I mean, David, it could be anyone. I mean, all of them could be interested. I mean, the people talk about, listen, and by the way, as I said before, I think that to get to 24, David, we're talking about at least 3 or 4 years. Well, I just re-upped. I'm sure you guys saw it.
Good.
I'm going to do 3 more years. Well, that'll get me to 2029, and I'll be 73 years old. David, I'm here to tell you, I live in the moment now, and I was really thrilled that Fox got to me as quickly as they did about coming back, and I'm as fired up for this year and what comes after that as I could possibly be. But unlike the last time, which was 3 years ago or 3.5 years ago, and they said, okay, you're in 23, you're going to go at least through 26. I'm like, okay, I'll be 40 plus years in the business in 25. We all set goals. I'll be 70 at the end of the contract. you know what? If it all ends there, then by God, that was a hell of a run. I can accept that. I was looking at it from that vantage point. Now at 70, and we're talking about doing it till I'm 73. I'm not sure, David, at 73 that I'll feel the same way that I feel now. Okay. So I do live in the moment now in a way that I never did before. I know that when it does end, it's going to be at Fox, and it's likely to end before they get to 24 teams. So any of my opinions that I give, I'm here to tell you, have nothing to do with my grinding to try to wait it out so I can get to do a playoff game for college football. Okay, that's not going to suddenly solidify my career. I think what I've done speaks for itself. I'm just talking about a sport I love and what I'd like to see happen with it moving forward. And whether I'm calling games or watching my friends call them, I would be excited to see a greater postseason than we've had. And I think in a lot of ways, what's taking place in college football, while everyone else around me, my age and even younger, is screaming, it's the end of the earth as we knew it. The world's coming to an end. The sky is falling. I'm saying these are the best of times. We should be relishing the improvements that have been made and the manner in which we go about getting to a national championship. So I don't, for 1 minute, have my own feelings about my career in mind when I say college football needs more networks involved. It needs to follow the blueprint of the NFL. And the chances of NBC, Fox, and CBS with the deals that they currently have with the Big Ten, of that being a shared entity as part of the new CFP, that could happen very easily. I have no idea. Way above my pay grade. But I think every network now, if you look at the viewing habits, even with the NBA, okay, which is not doing well with its regular season, the playoffs will do well. Live sports television has taken over network TV. The dramatic series watching and movies, made for TV movies, that's all moved to digital. That's all Netflix, Apple, Paramount Plus. The networks need live sports programming, whether it's the Olympics or the NFL. College football is second. It's bigger and better than the NBA and the NHL, but it's making less money than the NBA and the NHL. And that's a travesty. That's what's being left on the table that Tony Petitti is smart enough to realize, and that's why he has the vision that he has. And have you heard anybody else besides him come up with an idea? I haven't. It may be unpopular to be the guy saying it. It might be a little hard for some people to understand. It's easy for some to say it dilutes. I've heard the diluting of the regular season crap. My God, the regular season being the strongest in the history of sports has been a myth forever. Forever. One thing I know for sure is the postseason's been a joke most of my adult life. Now we're finally fixing it. Finally.
Yeah. Why would you say it's been a fraud? Why would the college football regular season, in your opinion, why has it not been strong?
Well, we have way too many blowouts on TV all the time. The non-conference scheduling has been terrible. It's this notion the networks live off the blue bloods that will bring them millions of viewers, and then they put them on the air against teams for a check. I mean, that November debacle that the SEC puts on and has put on and gotten away with all these years with 8 conference games, that FCS garbage in November, my God, what a waste of airspace. That kind of crap. We don't need that. And yet, college football is still extremely popular.
Yeah.
I mean, it is.
Yep.
We've just put on, I think, through the years, because of the glut of games. I mean, we're not talking.
I think we just. I think we lost him. I think we lost the audio, Tim. All right. We lost it, Rez. Is that right? Okay. We're going to break away. Thank you. Great chunk of time with Tim Brando, Fox Sports, and really a lot of it on the sniping within the SEC, especially a lot of it at Ole Miss from all angles. It seems like two or three. And then also the college football playoff, the expansion at what particular time?
Yeah, no, appreciate Tim giving us a good amount of time there. And he's always a firecracker, ready to talk and speak his mind. I can appreciate that. I know that not everybody always agrees with him, but he's got his stance. Everybody's got theirs. We've all got a right to feel how we feel and say what we want to say about all these matters. And I think people get passionate about it because they just care. And I think I've said quite a bit when it comes to college football. For me, talking especially about stuff during the offseason isn't like this sport sucks and this is that. Like there's things that are frustrations. I think the care factor, though, is from caring. It's from like this sport could be so much better than it is. And it's got the chance to be like the best sport. But like the people in charge prevent it from being as good as it possibly can be for greed or whatever other reasons, power, control, what have you. And so there's just frustration that something that you care about so deeply either is changing, which kicks in the nostalgia, which is a very powerful drug. And he's kind of speaking to that before we got lost there about people reflecting fondly on the regular season growing up and how in the 90s and the 2000s and even some of the 2010s, it felt different. It was more special or whatever. But yeah, I think everybody is emotionally connected to it and excited or angered by it because they care. And that's where I think we can all like agree of, yeah, there's some stupid stuff going on. There's some things that should never have happened in the first place. That was a result of leaders being poor leaders and being selfish and greedy. But there's still a great sport out there. And, you know, we still can mix in talking about kickoff times and channels and things with various other factors. We're living in the midst of more coverage than there's ever been of college football and every other sport for that matter. Every interest outside of sports has, how many like knitting YouTube channels do you think there are? Like 1 million of those probably. How many were there like 10 years ago? Like 2?
Yeah,
maybe. So like there's just so much more of it. And it's a year-round sport now versus what it used to be when it did feel like outside of spring ball for about 2 weeks there in March or April. From like January to media days in July, it was just not college football season. Like there was some recruiting, but it was recruiting season, and that's all it was. Now it's realignment season, it's TV season, it's NIL season.
The NFL is 24/7, 365 days a year. College football is not at that level, but they pretty much are now 12 months a year.
I think it's pretty much gotten to that point. It's not as structured, and that's where all of these debates and things come into play. Is the NFL knows their playoff model. If anything, they just say like, yeah, we'll add a couple more. Everybody's on board. Cool. We're all on the same side. A bunch of people aren't on the same side in this other sport that we're talking about. And that's why it's difficult to get anything done, because it would be the equivalent of the NFC East having a commissioner and those 4 teams arguing with the NFC South about which one of them deserves more playoff spots. Well, in the NFL, you just go earn it. It's like very simple. You go earn it. So it's not apples to apples. There's a lot of different self-interest involved and a lot more people involved ultimately geographically around the country. But yeah, I think all of the gnashing of teeth and wringing of hands comes from frustration, but also people who are frustrated either because there's a better way or because, yeah, it's not the sport you grew up with. And that's also tough to deal with. I do think there's been a bit of a nostalgia hit when it does come to the special regular season, and I've talked about that. I think that's been a little bit overblown. I'm not saying there's not something to that, and there were more high stakes, like every week seemingly mattered. That certainly isn't the case here, but I also don't know that was always the best thing either. I think that sometimes you sort of eliminated some extra drama or extra opportunities for teams that maybe would have been deserving because you were so set in, we can only have 2 national title contenders and they have to be in these polls. And now it's like, you go play it out. Now Miami gets to the championship game. They weren't even going to be in the damn playoff for a second, you know?
TCU, Cincinnati, Indiana, Ole Miss, and Miami's a big name, but they had to go through the back door to get in, and they did it when they got the chance. They took advantage of it.
Yes, they did. So I mean, it's all just passion is what it's coming out, and it's the off season to his point. And so there's a lot of people just fired up about stuff.
All right, so here's what we're going to do. I have a banquet honoring 20 locally regional high school senior student athletes who are all amazing. Valedictorian, salutatorian, straight A students, and involved in everything, not just athletics, but around the community, charitable organizations. They're going to host that banquet about a mile from here inside McLean Stadium, inside the Baylor Club. Clint Bruce, Navy SEAL, Team 5. He's going to be our guest speaker tonight. So I'm going to go do that because that starts at 7. We have an interview with Brett Norsworthy coming up around the corner. He is from Memphis, Sports 56, Super 56 Radio in Memphis, but covers pre- and post-game of Ole Miss football about yesterday and really what kind of has gone on. And then also some good stuff about the team and about Trinidad Chambliss and also much more. So Craig's going to take it, not the baton because he can do it right here. I got to say goodbye as we go to that interview in just a moment. And Rez, Garrett, Andrew, and also both Logan and Houston, we appreciate you. I'll be back tomorrow at 3, and we should have another great lineup as well. But Craig takes the rest of the way. Let me do one endorsement, and we'll see you tomorrow. And Craig in 5 minutes
I'll talk to you in about 20 minutes or so.
20 minutes. That's right. The interview's pretty lengthy. It's from a guy we've known, Brett Norsworthy, for quite some time. Before I leave, QC Kinetics, they're helping heal patients with pain from arthritis, injury, knees, shoulders, hips, and lower back. I've told you I've had a couple of those. And what I thought was arthritis, and probably was, no structural damage like muscle or ligament tears, no bone-on-bone issue. The MRIs just show that, it's a little bit flared up, and a lot of it even comes from my lower back. So I had numerous injections. I say numerous, probably 6 to 8 in the last 5 or 7, 8, 10 years, and calmed it down a little bit, and eventually it just didn't. So I heard about QC Kinetics in both Dallas and Houston. QC Kinetics, which is helping you, it has helped me feel better. Ran a mile this morning and felt good doing it. The cardio is nice to have that instead of not being able to do that much at all. Hell, it was hard sometimes for me to walk. What do? They take what is inside your body, natural biologics, take it, draw your blood, spin it, and put it back. Like, for example, they'll take it out of my left arm, the blood, the plasma, the platelets, spin it, and put it back in my lower waist. And then, of course, there's also a stem cell. They take that out of one of your bones, your hip bone, and they spin it and put it back inside of your body. It's now time to stop the inflation. It's now time to stop that annoying, tugging, constant pain or ache that you've had wherever your joint may be, wherever it might be in your joints. Right now, you can do it. QC Kinetics, available. Numbers 972-972-8610, 713-913-5285. Time to get a hold and control and get rid of the pain and the aches that bothers you all the time. I now play golf. I now jog a little bit, and it's really nice that I don't have to worry about, while I'm doing it, having a problem or later in the day coming back to haunt me. It doesn't. I'm telling you, it works. So if you have heard chatter about surgeries, if the injections have not helped you out long-term, consistently, contact my good friends in Dallas and Houston at qckinetics.com.
Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide. Affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
Whatever it is you wrangle, whatever seeds you sow, no matter what you nurture or what you choose to grow, at Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, we're proud to protect all Texans.
When you play hard, sometimes you fall hard. Sports injuries require special treatment. At Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, our team of expert doctors provides athletes and active adults with comprehensive sports medicine care, diagnostics. Whether you're in high school, college, or beyond, we'll help you get back on the field. Call on the team physicians for Baylor Athletics. Call Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics.
I pitched in the major leagues for 24 years, and let me tell you, I can feel it in my joints. Shoulders, elbows, and knees. Trust me, pain doesn't retire when you do. I tried everything to get rid of the pain. Nothing worked until QC Kinetics.
Baseball legend Roger Clemens and other patients are getting lasting relief with QC Kinetics regenerative treatments. No surgery.
I trust QC Kinetics. You should too. Let's commit to getting rid of all the pain.
Schedule your free consultation today. QC Kinetics. Better starts here.
From the TFNB Your Bank for Life studio. Now, it's time for the SMOAK Show. Presented by IdealMRI.com. Premium quality MRIs, convenient, affordable. That's ideal. And by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance. We are Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, your insurance provider built by Texans for Texans. And we've been protecting families in our great state since 1952. TFNB, your bank for life, serving Central Texans since 1889. It's time for the SMOAK Show on 365 Sports with David Smoke and Craig Smoke.
Norsworthy, we know him and have known him for quite some time. Memphis Radio, Sports 56, WHBQ, and also a part of the Ole Miss Network, the football network, pregame and postgame. Brett, how interesting was it in the Memphis area and among Ole Miss fans yesterday?
Well, it's very interesting, David. Thank you for having me. It is interesting times. I think the month really kind of gives it away. In May, we're all looking for a little bit of content with the college football front, and we got provided it this week. And I think it's unfortunate because Lane Kiffin just did Ole Miss such a great job. I will forever be indebted to him for what he did, from what he inherited to what he left. The job he did was just phenomenal, and he was great to work with. Maybe my favorite coach to ever interact with. He treated me with a lot of respect. He's a really fun-loving guy and a really great coach. And I was sad that we went that direction this week that is just purely and wholly preposterous.
So what was worse, or what was more of a, damn, man, why us? Kiffin and Oxford and Ole Miss and, going back in the days of racism, not that Southeast Louisiana is any, beacon of, everything good over the years, or the Steve Sarkisian basket weaving comments.
Yeah, and I understand the historical aspect of it, but that was over 50 years ago for a lot of it, whether it was in Southeast Louisiana or in Memphis, Tennessee, or in Little Rock, Arkansas, or wherever it was, and it was wrong, and that has been righted, and we were on a really good path, and I think that Lane and most people really, really know that, and I'm sorry I went there, but for Steve Sarkisian, look, Texas is a great academic school. We know that. We know that because they tell us constantly two things: how rich they are and how great the school is. We know both of those things. And for Sark to make, the basket weaving comment, he knows better than that. And we're all taking transfers now. And we have all wondered, what does it do to degree plans? How do you play at 4 different places? Look, we all know friends that may have started at one place and transferred to another, and that automatically kicks you back about a year from graduation. That's into the 5-year plan. We know that. So for him to go there, like there's some paragon of taking players from other places, and academics are all in order. I mean, we just know better. I don't want to name any names because I really don't want to get down in the mud on either issue with anybody. I would much rather leave the talking to the field next year. And on the field next year, Ole Miss is going to be really good and play LSU week 3, September 19th in Oxford. Mm-hmm. And I think both teams will be undefeated. And then when Ole Miss comes to Austin, October 24th, to play Texas and Arch Manning, I think both teams will be undefeated that night, UT and Ole Miss. So this is kind of silly season. I hope Mike Slab in 2 weeks in Destin at the league meetings in a nice, forceful I said Mike Slab. I meant Greg Sankey. I hope Greg Sankey goes in and pulls his best Mike Slab imitation, shuts the door, and says, that's enough.
Yeah, you're right. Some of it is there's too much time on everyone's hands, and then some stories get blown out of proportion, perhaps. But I thought both of them deserved a WTF in a way. And a lot of what Sark was saying about all the things he was discussing, a lot of it had validity, and I agreed with a lot of it. I just thought that the shot at Ole Miss, is there a recruit? Was there a head-to-head recruiting battle between the two that might have also brought that edge? I know there was the quote from Pete Golding back when he was asked about Sark, and he's a great friend. I just hope he's sober. Maybe that's just something where Sark decided to go off, or this might be a campaign. And, Brett, it wouldn't surprise me because when UT and the Southwest Conference was falling apart and they joined at the hip with the Big 8, they went after Nebraska and partial qualifiers and those type of players and got that taken out pretty quickly. They went after who was the best, and it eventually, slowly but surely, affected Nebraska and who they could recruit to.
Yeah, it sure did. It might be some there with Pete Golding and Sark, but I wouldn't think much to share the same agent. They both came out of the Saban camp, so to speak. I think Pete a little more so. For Sark, it was more of a kind of a reclamation project for him to go through Alabama. But he's a great coach. He's got a really good team. I think maybe there might have been some headbutting over Cam Coleman. Everybody wanted Cam. He's going to be a great player for Arch. And, back to the recruitment of Arch, we sure wanted him, but understand why he went to Texas and have wished him well, except for, when we play October 24th. But I think that's going to be the first of 2 meetings. I think Texas and Ole Miss play the regular season game in Austin, and then I think they'll meet again in the SEC championship game in Atlanta. And the Atlanta game, think of all the chips in the middle of the table that game could have. Winner, at worst, probably gets a 3 seed. Number 1 seed might go to the Big Ten champion. Notre Dame at 12-0 could very well be the 2. So the winner of that game, at worst, will be the 3 seed in the playoffs. I think the loser at worst will be about the 6 seed. But also, if they're meeting, if Trinidad Chambliss and Arch Manning are meeting in a rematch in Atlanta the next weekend, that's the Heisman Trophy weekend, and I think it very well could decide the Heisman Trophy.
Yeah, and I have a vote, and I think the day after that game was to be played is the deadline of getting the votes in. You're right, because the following weekend they do have the introduction of all of that. Keith Carter, the AD, kind of fired back a little bit, and someone said, why is all this happening? I want to get back to the football part of it too, but why is some of this happening? He goes, maybe people are a little bit frustrated that Ole Miss is winning and not just average, that we're pretty good. Is that part of it?
I think they liked us, when they had us at arm's length a lot more than having to beat us. And 52 wins the last 5 years, and last year to go to the national semifinals and lose on the last play of the game, led with led with 3 minutes to play against Miami. Miami was really good. Miami was the better team. The better team won that night, and there was no there on the last play. It was not pass interference. The play happened literally right in front of me. I'd already gone down on the field for post game, and both were giving it as good as they were taking it. No, it wouldn't have been called at any other part of the field. There was no excuse. Miami was better. We had a really good year, 13-2, finished third in the AP. And, no banners up for 3, but that's pretty darn good from what Lane Kiffin inherited after the 2019 season. And David, I get a lot of people on with Lane. I have a lot of people wanting to tell me, I told you so. I told you so. Look what he's doing to you. I knew he would do it to you.
Right.
I'll take these last 6 years and 52 wins and a Peach Bowl win over Penn State, a Gator Bowl win over Duke, 2 trips to the Sugar Bowl, last year to the Fiesta Bowl and the Sugar Bowl, beat Georgia, again, 52 wins. I'll take that. He can call me anything he wants to, and he knows it's not accurate. But the I told you so crowd, I think, is largely led by some that unbelievably still want to hang on to Hugh Freeze in that era at Ole Miss, and he left us on the side of the road for dead.
Yeah, he did. And when I think of the teams competing for an SEC title, it was Alabama, it was going to be Georgia, it's going to be LSU. Now you have Texas involved. Oklahoma seems like they've kind of gotten their footing. And then on top of that, you're right, you have A&M with the team they had. They just couldn't finish. And, of course, they didn't beat Texas in a huge game. And then lost the playoff game. But then it's Ole Miss. And it's like, are there 5, 6, 7? And who knows who might jump up? Who might be this year's version of 2 years ago, the way South Carolina finished the year? Or, who's going to be able to make that next step? What is your opinion of where the SEC is? Because they have had this run for a long time, Brett, since really back when Florida with Urban Meyer, LSU before that, and then, of course, the Nick Saban run. Where is the SEC now as far as who they are after the last 3 years they've not been able to win the title, which, again, sometimes people overestimate that. But, no, the SEC was pretty good about letting everyone know they were winning championships, too.
That's right. You can't have it both ways. You can't be chanting it means more in SEC when you're not winning. And last year, not even in the championship game. And 3 straight years for the Big Ten right now, I think clearly the Big Ten's ahead. Scores matter, scoreboard, record books, game results. That has to matter, and the Big Ten has been able to have that advantage. I give them credit. Now, I love when the Big Ten also wants to throw in basketball. They never really did that from 2000 after Tom Izzo won it till this year when Michigan got it. But okay, they won it this year in basketball as well. I give them credit. They're ahead right now, and I think one distinctive thing that put them ahead, not just 3 years in a row, David, but 3 years with 3 different teams, and the story of all time in Indiana and what Kurt Cignetti, what he has accomplished in his 2 years in Bloomington for IU. And if I had to make, I was talking about those predictions that I'm going to roll out as the summer goes on. If I had to make a bracket up right now and pick a winner, I would say Big Ten 4 years in a row with a 4th different team, and that would be Dan Lanning's Oregon Ducks.
Yeah, they are. When people discuss the elite, Blue Bloods is really more of a historical perspective. But Oregon is one of those that's been really good, but they haven't been able to punch through. They had the one championship game, which they lost. They have been really good. They are a team that a lot of people watch them. They're kind of, the hip part of college football. And Lanning's a hell of a coach, but they can't seem to pop through. But yeah, they got a hell of a team too. Who would be a surprise team? Who can be this year's? I know LSU was down, but who would be someone among the teams we have not already discussed? Brett Norsworthy, by the way, from Memphis Radio and Sports 56, WHBQ, and Ole Miss pregame and postgame. Who could be a sleeper inside the SEC this year?
I don't know if we have a real defined sleeper. It's going to come from about 5 or 6 teams. The Texas Aggies, the Texas Longhorns, certainly in that mix. We mentioned Ole Miss, Georgia, LSU, Alabama. Maybe in his first year at Florida, John Sumrall, if a lot broke right. John is a great coach. And I've told a lot of my Florida friends, I know they were disappointed they didn't get Lane. You got a really good one. You got a really good man. You got no drama, just a worker. He was on Matt Luke's staff as linebackers coach at Ole Miss. And we got to be fairly close. And he did a great job at Troy and continued it at Tulane. So if I had to take a flyer, if you can count Florida as a flyer, I would. And Ole Miss, that big game against LSU is September 19th.
Yep.
The very next weekend, we got to go to the Swamp and play John and the Gators. My national team, and it's almost like Florida. Can you really call this team a sleeper? But isn't it time for Riley and USC to come through? And I think they can. I'm not as big on Indiana for this year as everyone else, and it's no slight on Coach Signetti. It's not disrespecting him. I just think gravity will take over. Sir Isaac Newton was right. At some point, Indiana's got to come down off this high a little bit, and I think USC will feel that other bid from the Big Ten.
Yeah, what they've done the last 2 years. Even after what Indiana did in 2024, there were still some naysayers. Well, last year they took that and shoved it up everybody, as you know.
They sure did.
And the Lincoln Riley thing at USC, he goes out there. Everyone's saying you got Caleb Williams goes with him and all that, but you're right. They've just been good enough. But USC fans and alums are starting to get a little bit frustrated. It's interesting that Florida would be a dark horse, but that's true. That's who they have been. It does make a lot of sense. I'd like to tell we've seen the run last year. I had heard of Trinidad Chambliss because I do enjoy sometimes watching those Division II and even the Division III FCS championship games. So I knew who he was. I knew he was a dynamic player. I knew Ferris State was a powerhouse. And so then when I saw that he had transferred, didn't think he had Simmons and others, but then all of a sudden he gets the opportunity. When was it last year, Brett, when you knew that Trinidad Chambliss was more than just a guy? And then what kind of young man is he? Because he seems to be very special.
David, I didn't know a lot about him. He didn't hit Oxford until May 27th, Memorial Weekend, reporting date last year. And really, Joe Judge found him through contacts and friends in the coaching business. And he gets to Oxford sight unseen, but worked all summer. Most people didn't know he was really around.
Yep.
And then when fall camp started, he was good. And he could really put pressure on the first team defense as running as the backup quarterback. I went to a scrimmage 2 Friday nights before the regular season, and he had a good scrimmage, but never did I dream he would do all that. And then we had the opening game in a laugher, and he got in late. And then at Kentucky, when Austin Simmons got hurt late, he came in and just kind of ran the clock out. And we got the heck out of town, got on the bus in a really close game against Kentucky. But the next week, first start, Simmons is out. He plays against Arkansas, and it was a wild game, 31-28 at halftime. And then in the second half, both sides settled down and played a little defense. But he had the ball in his hands when we needed him late in the game, and he was the go-to guy. It was like watching Chris Paul play point guard. He was really incredible. So I had him on postgame with me, and David, I looked him in the eyes, and in a nice mannerly way, but he looked back at me. And, man, I saw a killer. I looked in his eyes, and I saw Jack Bauer from 24. I thought, oh, my goodness. I said, we got something. And he just kept getting better all year long, and the biggest moments all year. And out at Oklahoma on October 25th, probably the biggest regular season win of the year, to go to Norman and win. And he just really put on a show out there and played well. And a really fun moment of the year after the game, I've interviewed the players. I've interviewed Coach Kiffin, and Lane has changed clothes, and we're just kind of sitting there visiting before we're going and getting on the bus. And in the locker room comes Barry Switzer in full Coach Switzer style and ambiance. And I can't repeat the language he used, but he said, Lane, you got a great team, and nobody would have loved more coming in and whipping the Sooners like your daddy, a Nebraska guy, Coach Monty Kiffin. Nobody would have enjoyed this more than him.
Oh my God!
It was one of the best moments of the year.
Yeah, unbelievable. I really enjoyed it. Last thing, Brett, when Chambliss went in and wanted another year, and I think both of you and I, the way things have changed over the years. If we've covered college athletics, it's like night and day, and it changes all the time. And at times I've had to go okay, but the extra year, he has that inside the state of Mississippi. How much was that a slam dunk? And people can decide whether or not he needed the extra year. We've seen some guys get it, some guys not. But your thoughts about that hearing, and how much were Ole Miss fans on edge?
Well, we weren't on edge at all because we knew we had the facts we had the facts on our side. We really did. And we lawyered up and got the best in Tom Mars, who has been against us at times.
Yep.
And he was with us. And I told Tom, I much prefer him with us than against us. But we had the facts on our side. Look, this will be the 4th year he has played college football. He had a medical exemption, and some of the paperwork at Ferris State wasn't done as properly as it might be done at a bigger place. And the facts were shown to the judge and in-state judge. It was simple. And if we win a national championship, we should build a monument to Judge Whitwell in the Grove.
We'll talk to you again very soon.
Anytime, anything for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. With Memphis Radio, Ole Miss pregame and postgame, Brett Norsworthy, a part of Sports 56 WHQ.
So there you go. Appreciate Brett Norsworthy for being a part of the show, and Smokey getting a chance to set that up a little bit earlier in the day and get that for everybody out there to hear some more about the Ole Miss back and forth, or the Ole Miss pot shots the last couple of days. Also some Trinidad Chambliss and more, part of that, some fun anecdotes. So thanks to Brett. It's a good dude, and he'll, I'm sure, join us here in the next few months as well as we get closer to football season. But it's me riding solo. Smokey's off to his banquet, and we've about covered all the ground we need to cover today. I've got a feeling that some of the pot shots and things will kind of be in the rear view unless some other coach wants to pop up and say something in the next 24 hours. But I think we're going to move on from that as far as tomorrow goes. And who knows what else is in store between now and then. But in store right now is the close of the show. So let's get to the wheel to kick things off and close out today's episode of 365 Sports and the Smoke Show. There we go. What question do we have today? It always trickles up. One college football team of the past to throw into the mix of the 2026 season, who would it be? Andrew's picked the 2001 Miami Hurricanes. Wow. Like, if you want to pick the best team of all time, in your opinion, to throw into the mix, then yeah, 01 Miami's right there. 95 Nebraska, various 19 LSU. There's a lot of others you could choose. Like, would 01 Miami, Chat, be a good pick to throw into the mix, or would they just like kick everybody's ass because that was old, like regular recruiting in college football? I'm sure there were some envelopes in lockers from time to time for all those future NFL stars, but I wonder, would like the best team, like 95 Nebraska stylistically would have been interesting to throw into the mix. But yeah, 01 Miami, I feel like you're throwing a bullet. It's like when, gosh, who was it that said it the other day? Kirby Smart had that interview. I think it was the Next Round Live, and he was talking about how like the Georgia teams from just a few years ago would just beat the ass of anybody and everybody today because of how the game was different back then. I wonder if that would be the same thing for 01 Miami. But give me your thoughts. Obviously, you reach a point where, like, I don't know how well like 70s style football translates to this day and age, but maybe it still would. Maybe it would just be the physicality and the depth that you don't have nowadays. But 01 Miami, hell, throw 19 LSU in the mix. I mean, they're pretty recent and they were damn fun, but seeing them go through a not only 4-team playoff, but a 12-team playoff, I think would be a lot of fun. Does that mean Lane Kiffin has to coach them, though? If so, I don't know if I'd want to see that or not. But, yeah, I guess 19 LSU, because they're within this realm of the craziness, but just before it. So it's still recent enough to feel like it would fit with today's day and age. So that's who I think I would go with there. Let me know your thoughts in chat. So there you go. There's the poll question today. Very interesting question from Andrew that we could have spent more time on. But all right, got a couple super chats, I guess, here. So let's go ahead and get a couple super chats in. Brando, booyah from Kim Coulter, $4.99. Yes, you got your full fill of Tim Brando during the 4 o'clock hour. Had a lot of interesting things to say as usual, a lot of HSOs, hot sports opinions, and we do appreciate how grateful, or we do appreciate how genuine he is, and how much he does give us some time of his day to riff on a lot of different things. So thank you, Kim, as always, for the $4.99 there. And then I think one more super chat, and also from Kim, got to be Brando's best segment ever. Yeah, I mean, we touched on a lot of different topics. I'd imagine it'll probably be a few weeks before we talk to him again. Who knows what pops off between now and then, because certainly yesterday we weren't anticipating all this Ole Miss stuff all simultaneously dropping, coincidentally at that. But yeah, he was on fire, and he was great, and always enjoy talking to Timmy B. So Kim, as always, much appreciate you being a part of the show, and also chipping in with the super chats as well. So thank you for that. And if you didn't catch Tim Brando, then check the YouTube page here in a little while, and we'll have that, I'm sure, up for you, or you can rewind the live broadcast and basically just check out the entire 4 o'clock hour. That's all Timmy B there. All right, so thank you, Kim. Let's go to the next round of games to close out the show here, and this is the quiz section. On May 13th, 1983, which legendary power hitter, famously known as the straw that stirs the drink, became the first player in MLB history to reach 2,000 strikeouts. Straw that stirs the drink. I don't know that I've ever heard that nickname necessarily. I mean, it kind of sounds vaguely familiar. 1983 power hitter. I feel like I'm kind of getting on my depth. Like, I don't know much about Dave Kingman, and that doesn't sound right. Mike Schmidt, power hitter. Let's go Reggie Jackson. That seems to tick the boxes here. I'm going to go Reggie Jackson for the straw that stirs the drink, and the answer to this poll question. Okay, bam. Yeah, I know it was Mr. October. Known as Mr. October for his postseason heroics, Jackson reached this milestone during an 0-for-5 game against the White Sox. He famously finished his career with 563 home runs, but also a record 2,597 strikeouts, actually totaling 13 more strikeouts than hits in his career. So did not know that. The straw that stirs the drink. I'm surprised I've never heard that, or if I heard that, that didn't stick with me, because that's a pretty cool nickname. Mr. October, obviously everybody's heard that, and very familiar with that being his nickname. But didn't know that about the strikeouts necessarily, much less them being more than the hits he had in his career. So very interesting. The thing I like about these quizzes, sometimes you do learn a little something, or at least I do from time to time. So I learned a little something with this one right here. So glad to get that right. Not be a complete embarrassment on my own here. Let's see how the next couple things go. On May 13th, 1999, which NBA legend set a playoff record by recording 10 steals in a single game against the Orlando Magic? In 99, I want to say it's Iverson or Peyton, and I'm going to say Allen Iverson. Okay. Look at that. The answer: put on a defensive masterclass against the Orlando Magic, pairing those 10 steals with 33 points and 5 assists, while he went up against legendary ball hawks like the Glove, Gary Payton, and Mookie Blaylock during that era. Iverson is the only one to ever reach this specific playoff milestone. So yeah, had no idea, just whittled it down in my head, and glad to be right on that one as well. Good old AI, the answer. And I actually had a pair of, I don't know if people remember, like the red and white, some of his original shoes. I had a pair of those I rocked in high school for basketball that I really liked. Those shoes, they were really cool. And I think it was like maybe the first pair of actually like star basketball player shoes that I had ever bought were the AIs, the red and white ones, and probably what would have been like, I guess 99, 2000, 2001, sometime in that time frame. I think they were called the Answers, if I'm remembering correctly, the Reeboks, but they were cool. And AI was the definition of cool. He was just a cool-ass basketball player, and always enjoy watching old clips and people talk about his career. So thank you for that, Andrew. 2 for 2 on this solo venture here. So glad to keep the good times rolling. And now let's get into the poll questions to round out this episode of 365 Sports. Where should LeBron James play next season, as the Lakers are eliminated and he now weighs his options? back with the Lakers, Cleveland homecoming, or Golden State super team. We don't need him in Golden State. Cleveland homecoming, so his third trip to Cleveland is what most people want to see. I guess end where it started. Nearly half of the votes out there want to see him finish out in the state of Ohio where it all began. And I think that would be cool. That would be like a romantic or a romanticized type of ending to his career. It is wild that would be the third time he's been a member of the Cleveland Cavaliers. The last two by choice, obviously. Back with the Lakers just does nothing for me personally. I know it's the Lakers and a big brand, but I don't care. I'm going to say I couldn't care less. I don't care at all about LeBron and LA personally. It doesn't make me want to watch them anymore at this stage of his career. I'm more inclined to watch them because of Luka or Austin Reeves than I am for LeBron, but they're popular. And then the Golden State super team, I think those days are gone for Golden State. And I can only imagine the love fest and the attention that would be placed on a team with both Steph Curry and LeBron and Draymond and whoever else is a part of that roster next year. So I think I'd go Cleveland homecoming of the three options here. I'm with the majority of people at 49%. Just a nice, simple and good feeling way to wind down his career rather than chasing rings with Golden State or playing ball with Luka in LA. So yeah, let's go Cleveland there. And on to the next one. Poll, who's taking home the Wanamaker Trophy? Scotty Scheffler, 51%, Rory McIlroy, and Cameron Young, and then John Rahm finishing 2, 3, and 4. And what is it, the U.S. Open that is this week? I'm trying to think. No, it's not the U.S. Open. See, you asked me the golf question on this show. PGA Championship, that's what it was. I knew a big event was coming up, but my apologies. I don't claim to be a golf guy. But Scotty Scheffler, the overwhelming choice to take home the Wanamaker Trophy at the PGA Championship this weekend, named after Rodman Wanamaker. Nearly 2.5 feet tall trophy, weighs approximately 27 pounds. Originally created in 1916. So just adding on a little seasoning there on that. So Scotty Scheffler, everybody's pick, seems like a good pick to me. Yeah, I'll default on any golf question to who wins this tournament. I'll say Scotty Scheffler. That's always a good one to go with. But Rory, 24%, Cam Young, 16%, John Rahm, 9%. So thanks to the folks who voted on that one right there, and we'll see how the rest of the week plays out as far as how that goes. I'm sure Smokey will want to talk a little PGA Championship before all is said and done by the end of the week. Just a couple shows to go. So good luck to him tonight at the Academic All-Star Banquet, which is a yearly event honoring a bunch of really talented student athletes, not like the phrase that you hear thrown around in college, but like actual student athletes still in high school with big-time good grades and also some accolades on the field. It's a great event, so he definitely needed to leave early to be a part of that. Hopefully it goes well. Hopefully the rest of your day and night goes well. Also, really appreciate everybody for being a part of the show. From our guest lineup, Brett McMurphy and Tim Brando and Brett Norsworthy. And I think that was it, right? Those three. And then also thanks to you, everybody in the chat throughout the show. Thanks for the super chats as well, Kim, as always. And just thanks to everybody for being a part of the ride with us. Frustrations over college football, fun over college football, just a love of college football. We share that for sure, and a sprinkling of other sports as well. So we'll be back tomorrow at 3 to do it all over again and see what happens between now and then. But until then, have a great night, everybody. Talk to you tomorrow.
It's time to compete against yourself, finding too many excuses not to work out combined with bad eating habits, and Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness can help reach inside your competitive soul. Discipline, getting results you've only dreamed about, personal training, group exercise classes, and even a tanning bed, world-class tennis facility, and pickleball courts and lessons available. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness, spacious, clean workout rooms, free weights, state-of-the-art technology, weight training equipment, and no intimidation. It's time for you to react today, not tomorrow, at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
Declaration of Deals is at Allen Samuels in Waco. Get $11,000 off a new Ram 1500 Lone Star, plus 2.9% for 72 months. And America's best full-size truck powertrain 10-year, 100,000-mile limited warranty at Allen Samuels in Waco.